Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's Tuesday, August the 11th, and I'm going to be calling our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Before we begin, I would like to provide a few friendly reminders. Assistive listening devices are available for anyone who may need one during tonight's meeting. Please see the Deputy Clerk, who can help you sign one out and get set up. We kindly ask that all devices be returned at the end of the meeting before you leave so that they can be collected and made use of at future meetings. Please also note that the washrooms are located down the hall to the left, and in the event of an emergency, residents are asked to exit in an orderly fashion using the stairs located outside of council chambers. Should the staircase become unavailable, residents are asked to proceed down the fire escape that's located at the back of council chambers. And of course, if any assistance is required, please see staff. And lastly, I do want to note that Councillor Attridge is joining us virtually this evening. So we're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Moving on to our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to disclosures of pecuniary interest, I note that none were received prior to this evening's meeting. Does anybody have any to disclose? Seeing none, we're going to move on to announcements, updates, and recognitions. And we're going to start with a really exciting recognition of the 2026 Youth Entrepreneurs from My Future, My Career, and Summer Company programs. So it is a real pleasure to recognize and celebrate an outstanding group of young entrepreneurs from Port Hope who have demonstrated creativity, initiative, and courage, mostly courage, to turn their ideas into action. Through Northumberland County's My Future, My Career, and Summer Company programs, these young residents have shown that entrepreneurship has no age limit and that innovation can start at a young age and with a single idea. Entrepreneurship is more than just starting a business. It's about imagination, it's about leadership, it's about resilience, and believing in yourself. These programs help cultivate those qualities, and all of our recognized recipients this evening remind us that the future of our community is in fact very bright. So on behalf of the municipality of Port Hope and your council, I want you to know how proud we are of all of your accomplishments. You represent the very best of our community. Your achievements, I hope, will inspire other young people to dream big and work hard and believe in their own potential. So congratulations to each of you, and we look forward to seeing what you will accomplish in the years ahead. And although we have a number of recipients that we are recognizing, we have two of us joining us tonight in council chambers, and I'm going to invite two of them to come forward. And I want to say just a few words about their entrepreneurial ideas and businesses. So the first is Ella, who is the founder of Winking Goose. Now, Winking Goose is a student-led business that creates original artwork inspired by the natural beauty of Northumberland County. Through drawings, paintings, and creative designs, Winking Goose captures the landscapes, wildlife, and special places that make our community unique. Each piece is created with care and creativity by Ella, giving people a chance to connect with nature through art while supporting a young local entrepreneur. So the idea behind this company is to share a love of nature and to encourage others to see the beauty that surrounds us every day, something that I think we can all take a pause to do once in a while. And it's one piece of artwork at a time. So we are fortunate to have an example of a magnet, and I know it's a small magnet, but that Ella has produced. But I inspire you all. I'm going to pass it along to council to have a look. It is a replica of the iconic Port Hope bandshell. Really beautiful piece. The second recipient this evening is Isaac, who's the founder of Spanish Adventure Club. And the Spanish Adventure Club is a project created by Isaac to help children ages 4 to 10 to learn Spanish in a fun and different way. Instead of traditional lessons, because who likes traditional language lessons, children learn Spanish words and phrases through games, sport, crafts, reading, and outdoor activities. And the sessions are held in small groups, giving children the opportunity to learn while having a lot of fun, making new friends, and building confidence using a second language. So Isaac's idea is to show children that learning Spanish can be fun and can be a real adventure. So I would like to now ask both Ella and Isaac to come forward. And I just want to note that unable to join us today were from the My Futures, My Career program, Ever, founder of Sugar Rush, Liv, founder of Sweet and Sour, Saul, founder of Soulful, and True, founder of True Shepherd Coaching, and from the Summer Company program, Kira, founder of Kira Digital Design Services. And I hope that I will be able to greet them and give them their certificates at a later date. We've got lots of great young entrepreneurs in the community. Moving on to item 3.2, moving on to a verbal update from the Manager of Law Enforcement regarding 121 Cavan Street. And I will now pass it over to the Manager of Law Enforcement for that brief update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going back to the fire that happened at 121 Cavan Street, known as the File Factory, in mid-June, an order was issued pursuant to the Building Code Act to have the File Factory remediated. The order was not complied with, so staff went through the procurement process to obtain a contractor, which is Cliffshore. The bid was $96,400 plus HST. That will be placed onto the owner's tax roll. We would like to let the residents know that there could be traffic issues during the next 2 weeks as they plan on starting the remediation August 17th, weather dependent.
Thank you very much for that update. Are there any questions from council on this update? Councillor Mink?
Thank you for that update. Could it possibly interfere with the school bus schedule? Has that been considered?
That will be considered during the ROP process. It has not been brought to my attention. The hope is that the work will be completed prior to school starting.
Thank you very much for that very important update, and I'm sure there are many members of Port Hope that are very much looking forward to that cleanup. Going to move on to a very warm welcome to a new member of the SLT, Mike Pahor. So I'd like to welcome Michael Pahor, who joined the municipality on August the 4th as Director of Corporate Initiatives and is leading our newly formed Corporate Initiatives Department. Michael brings a strong background in public policy, environmental management, governance, and stakeholder engagement, and I know that his experience will help move a number of important priorities forward. We are so pleased to welcome Michael to the team, and we look forward to the leadership, the fresh perspective, the ideas that he will bring as we continue to build strong partnerships and to enhance services for our residents and our communities. So a very warm welcome from the council and from the entire organization. Moving on to the next update, which is our Arts Festival. Last weekend, our community came together to celebrate another very successful Arts Festival. The downtown was filled with vibrant markets, interactive activities, outstanding performances, while artwork was showcased through our downtown, creating a welcome and creative atmosphere for residents and visitors alike. On behalf of council, and even Councillor Mink had a beautiful art stand at the Arts Festival. Very talented work. On behalf of the council, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to staff for their dedicated efforts in planning and delivering this event. I feel like every year we just go from strength to strength. Their hard work and commitment helped to make the festival a great success and a wonderful celebration of arts and culture in our community. Next update, Movies in the Park. I'd like to remind everyone that there are still 3 Movies in the Park events left to enjoy this summer. August 12th is Indiana Jones, August 26th for Inside Out, and Inside Out 2, sorry, not to be mistaken by the original Inside Out, and September 2nd for the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run, also not to be missed. The September 2nd screening has been added to make up for the movie that was canceled, of course, in June due to air quality concerns. We hope that residents and families will take advantage of these free outdoor movie nights and join us for a great evening and evenings in the park. So don't miss out on the final lineup and hope to see you all there. And now for an election update, I'm going to pass it over to the Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to members of council and members of the public. The clerk's office continues to actively work on preparations for the 2026 municipal and school board election, and it's important for us to share a few updates with you at each meeting. So for potential candidates, a friendly reminder, nomination period closes at 2 p.m. on Friday, August 21st. That's next Friday, and it's 2 p.m. So anyone interested in filing their nomination papers, you're strongly encouraged to book your appointment with the clerk's office, and you can do that by emailing clerk@porthope.ca as soon as possible before October 21st at 2 p.m. Please book your appointment with us as sooner rather than later.
Sorry, I think you meant August 21st.
Sorry, August 21st at 2 p.m. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And then for electors, please ensure your voter information is accurate and up to date. Please give us a call at Town Hall or email us at elections@porthope.ca, and we would be happy to check your information to make sure you get on the voters list, as well as make sure you stay up to date on porthopevotes.ca under information for voters. That's where you can find out who has already filed their nomination papers, and we will do certification on August 24th. So yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
CAO?
Through you, Chair, I'm just requesting just a 3-minute break before we move on.
Okay, we will have a 3-minute recess. So apologies for that recess. There was a family matter that needed to be attended to. Thank you for your patience. We're going to now move on to asking if there are council members that have any other updates that they wish to share from around the table. Councillor Clare.
Thank you. I actually, in consultation with the clerk, I was advised that this would be the appropriate point on the tonight's agenda to make a motion to set aside the rules of procedure such that we could consider a notice of motion under Section 11 of tonight's meeting agenda to be considered by council during tonight's meeting. The motion asks council to consider directing that a request that is included in the delegation materials planned for a delegation to the Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade to consider a special economic zone for the Port Hope Wesleyville employment corridor, if appropriate, be withdrawn from the delegation on the basis of a policy position adopted by this council more than a year ago. The reason that I propose that the rules should be set aside to allow us to discuss this evening is that the delegation is scheduled for next Monday, August 17th, and that this would be the last opportunity for council to have such a discussion. And I believe that it is warranted because in 2025, based on a notice of motion brought forward by Councillor Mink and myself, this council passed Resolution 132-2025 opposing special economic zone provisions of Bill 5 and sent that opposition to the Premier, 4 ministers, AMO, and every municipality in Ontario, a policy position that has never been rescinded. And council should be provided the opportunity to decide whether we would like that request to proceed when it contradicts a position we have previously publicly adopted by formal resolution.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mink. And any discussion around the table on this motion? Yes, to the clerk.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. In accordance with our procedure bylaw, this is a motion to suspend the rules of procedure. And in order for this motion to pass, it must be passed by a 2/3 vote. That means out of the 7 council members that are here today, 5 must vote in favor for the motion to be passed. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So just on the issue of then the suspension of the rules, I know that we have rarely done this on this council previously. I do note Councillor Clare's reminding us of this council decision. As far as I'm aware, nothing has changed in terms of the position of the municipality on this issue. We have not done any kind of additional motions to change that position. So I'm wondering why we actually need to suspend the rules, because the position remains the position on this issue. That's my position, not to say position one more time. Any further thoughts on this? Councillor Les.
Yeah, I have no real information on what this is all about. Quite frankly, it's just, too far out there to start suspending rules, etc.
Councillor Mink.
Thank you, and I respect that, Les, because this is something that is not publicly available, I guess, the topic in general. We talked about this over a year ago, and we passed a motion. It was related to Bill 5, and we had extensive discussion about it. And from my understanding, the delegation to AMO on Monday will be the opposite of what we had discussed. I might be wrong, but that's how I understand it.
So I'm going to turn it over to the CAO to respond to that point, because I don't think that's an accurate description of what is happening at the delegation.
So the delegation being put forward is one of probably several topics with multiple ministries, but and the ministry in particular, staff's position is not actually supportive of the special economic zones. We agree with council's position at this point in time. It was very clear that we were specific in the language if appropriate, because there was some posturing at the provincial level of putting that through. Unless we have the discussion or are able to be in front of the ministers to actually, we have much more impact when we can sit in front of them and have a conversation with them saying, council does not agree with this. We're not supportive of this. With special economic zones, the province has the right to just layer it on regardless of us. So we're trying to be at the table to make sure we have input and say in those conversations so that things can go our way and protect the best interests of the municipality.
Councillor Mink.
So thank you for that explanation. So as far as transparency to the community goes, how does this become a broader topic for the community?
Great question through you, Chair. The AMO delegations are opportunity for council and staff to meet and come face to face. These are not, there's no decision making that ever happens at AMO. These are just options that we have an opportunity to discuss, collaborate with the province, make sure we have a say, we have an input. Then it ultimately comes back to council to have a discussion and decision on any topic that happens at the provincial level. It's staff's responsibility to provide innovative, different solutions that council can consider. And essentially that's what the AMO delegations do, is to see what the province will move on, what the province would consider, and then ultimately come back to council and the community to say if that's a path forward that they want to move on.
Councillor Clare.
Sorry, I've lost the thread because I think we're now debating, we're discussing what I would like us to discuss in relation to the motion I would introduce under section 11 later this evening. I think right now we're discussing whether it's warranted to have that discussion. I think I appreciate this, and this is exactly the kind of discussion that I would hope to that I intended us to be able to have this evening. But given that there is language in the delegation materials about consideration of that, when we have explicitly, by vote of, I think, 6 members of council voted to say we are not in favor of special economic zones or those other, included in Bill 5, I think that it warrants a conversation with all of council before that goes forward. So that's why I brought forward the motion to set aside the rules, and I do have a motion language prepared for us to consider under section 11 of the agenda, should that be the will of council.
Okay, and I think Councillor Attridge had his hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I understand, Councillor Clare, what you're doing, and I think what this is really pointing to, and Councillor Lass, maybe this is helping clarify it, is because delegations to AMO are not discussed with council ahead of time. We're not included in those kinds of discussions. And in fact, we didn't get a list, I think, until July 7th as to what the delegations were or the content of them. There's really no opportunity to be able to have those discussions to see whether or not the language in them makes sense or that we even support that language. So I understand what Councillor Clare is saying, because the language that was in that particular delegation detail appears to be contradicting the policy direction of council. So I think it's worth having that conversation, and this would be that opportunity to have it, and the result will come out from that conversation. But I don't think it's in the benefit of the community for us not to have that conversation, and that's simply what this, I believe, is lending itself to an opportunity to have.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, Councillor Lass.
And thank you for that. And on a scale of 1 to 10, it sounds like AMO is a bunch of tire kicking and trying to, see what the opposition is thinking or basically. So how important is the delegations at AMO in context to what our decision was? If it's all coming back to us anyways.
I think that the CAO was very clear that these are meetings. No decisions are made at AMO. Any final decisions remain at this council table. And no AMO delegation can undermine, deter, or do any other decision that would be contrary to a council position. I don't know if the CA wants to. Councillor Clare.
I think sort of everybody who has spoken so far wants to talk about the issue, and that's the comments so far have been about the issue of the delegation. So I would suggest that we vote to suspend the rules so that we can have that conversation in a more fulsome way under Section 11 of tonight's
So is
agenda.
your motion in regards to all the delegations, or is your motion directly around the wording of something that we know that the council has already made a very clear decision on and sorted out a direction for, as you pointed out?
So the motion that I'm introducing right now is that the rules of procedure be suspended in accordance with Section 3 of the procedural bylaw to the extent necessary to permit a notice of motion respecting the withdrawal of the request to consider a special economic zone for the Port Hope Wesleyville corridor, if appropriate, from the municipality's planned delegation to the Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, to be introduced under item 11 of tonight's agenda and finally disposed of at this meeting of August 11th, 2026.
Okay, so we have a
And the clerk
mover.
has been provided with that language.
So we have a mover and we have a seconder for that. Any further discussion on this? Yes, Councillor, Deputy.
Could I just ask the clerk to put it up on the screen for me, just so I can read it over once, not just listening to it? Thank you.
And yeah, the motion really just speaks to, we should have that conversation tonight, and I fully appreciate that there would be a lot of discussion to be had.
I'm aware. I just want to read it just because you introduced it right this moment.
Sorry, I've got the clerk's hands up and the CO hand up.
I just want to confirm with the Councillor Holloway Wadwani that she's comfortable with this language and it is as she has stated.
CAO?
So just for clarification, and I know procedurally, I know where you're going with this, Councillor Clare, I don't have a problem with it, but I have no problems as well. You know, we don't need a notice of motion. We are more than comfortable to withdraw that and not have those conversations and have the conversations that we did want at the AMO delegation that are in line with council. So it's up to you, but you have our word that we will not be supporting special economic zones, and we don't necessarily have to go through the procedural motions to do that.
Councillor Clare?
I really appreciate that, but I think that given that the words respectfully request the province consider a special economic zone for the Port Hope Wesleyville corridor, if appropriate, are in print in a document that has been shared with the province, and I would feel more comfortable if it is the will of council that we not consider that, or that we're not in favor of considering that. I would like that to also be in print through a formal motion.
Okay, so we have, Councillor Mink?
Yeah, I just want to bring up the point that I think people that are listening right now have no clue at all what we're talking about. So I think that is why it's very important that we do follow through with the conversation, just because we've talked about transparency, and I think that really brings that conversation forward for people to understand what we're talking about.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder on suspending.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry, the
Madam
clerk
Mayor,
did
I had my hand
not,
up.
sorry, the clerk did not alert me to that. Councillor Attridge, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to also state that I don't think there's any harm in this council having that conversation. All it's going to cost us is some time, but I think it's a valuable spend of our time, especially given what special economic zones imply. So I would encourage everyone to have that.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder to suspend the rules. Any further discussion on this point? All in favor? And that is passed. Oh, did Counselor Attridge? Yes, that is passed. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, and Counselor Attridge online. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm counting the absences in the room, so, okay, let's do that vote again. Apologies. All in favor?
All
opposed?
Against, if you could be all opposed.
Motion defeated. Okay, moving on to the next item. And I just also, now that this is defeated, the CAO, can you please state for the record again the position on this issue as a matter of public record?
Yes, through you, Chair. It is council's position, it's staff's position at this point in time that we are not supportive of special economic developments, special economic zones for Port Hope or anywhere in Port Hope at this point in time. The motivation is to make sure that we have a seat at the table should the province decide to do something like that, which they can overlay on us. We are trying to move forward with the best interest of the community, and we'll have that conversation with the AMO delegations that we are not supportive of special economic zones.
Councillor Mink.
So can I just clarify? So that motion was to just to suspend the procedures, which we said no. And before we did that, the CAO, you said that we will not be making the delegation. Are we going forward with it, or are we not going forward with the delegation? Because you verbally said we wouldn't, that we don't need to suspend because you won't.
We will carrying on other business with Port Hope, with that ministry. We have other topics that we would like to talk with. That is just one gateway in to have a conversation. But it's, we still have the conversation because we've heard it, that we're not supportive. We will reiterate that council's perspective that we're not supportive of it. So we will still be moving forward with the delegation.
And there is one more update that we have before we actually move on to the report from youth councillors, and I'm going to pass it over to the CAO to talk about our upcoming AMO delegations next week.
So the AMO conference next week is participation of the 444 municipalities across Ontario. It's the largest municipal conference. We do have representation from council and from the senior leadership team attending. It's an opportunity to network. It's an educational opportunity at this conference to meet with different politicians at different levels of government, meet cohorts, meet colleagues across the staffing level and the council level. It's a great opportunity to, build the network as well as meet with senior provincial leaders. Our AMO delegations, we have put many forward, and the provinces recognize the importance of Port Hope in the future of the provincial, this provincial government, and we've been delegated many delegation requests across a myriad of topics that are all supportive of council and council's direction and in alignment with the strategic plan. So looking forward to having those delegations with ministers, parliamentary assistants, and just networking.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So thank you for that update. Just a question, and it relates to the discussion we just had. Is it typical that the delegations that we submit to AMO are not shared publicly with the community as to what's coming forward, what the wording is? I know some communities it happens, but what's typical?
Through you, Chair, typical is that it is staff-driven, the topics, based on what we hear from council, from what we hear in alignment with the strategic plan, is typically staff-driven. We work with the mayor and council that will be going to prep and have those conversations. As I think Councillor Less so appropriately said, it's tire kicking more than anything to try and see what's there. It's not a we don't seek council approval on this because these are just the very preliminary conversations. When things discussions get further down the line and there is decision points to be made, we would be coming back with staff reports to council. but we'd be much more fully informed. There's no point in wasting town council's time, residents' time, staff time, if there's no interest or engagement with the province on those topics. So everything would come back to council.
And I think I just want to add one thing, which is folks might not be aware, but at the county level, the county also does delegate at all of these kinds of conferences. And those delegations are not only staff-driven, but they're actually staff-delivered. So all of the delegations are made directly by staff to the representatives and supported by a very small number of politicians being there. And those are not traditionally vetted to the council or to the public. Councillor Clare.
I know this is all being said as if this is perfectly normal and acceptable, and it may in fact be normal. But respectfully, I don't know that it is actually just kicking the tires. This is not our neighbors or, a family member. These are provincial ministers with the power to do things to our community with the stroke of a pen. This is a minister who has the power to impose a special economic zone. Entering into a conversation with that minister on that topic is not casual, it's not kicking the tires, and it could have real implications. And we agreed we weren't going to talk about it, and yet everybody seems to want to talk about it, so I'm not really sure why the vote went the way it did. But if everybody's going to weigh in, I am also going to weigh in. My concern is a special economic zone has serious implications, including that lands designated as special economic zones would not be subject to the policies and bylaws of the municipality. They would not be subject to our planning authority. They would not be subject to certain environmental legislation. It's not a small issue. And so I think even entering into a conversation about that, to me, is a big deal. I appreciate, I've never been in one of these delegations, so maybe I'm naive, but it seems to me to be a big deal, and it's about the future of our community. So when you talk about not wanting to waste council's time with things that might not move forward, I would suggest, how about we not waste municipal time on things that council has no interest in? Let's not even pursue those, even to kick the tires. If council has a very clear position on something, it shouldn't even be on the agenda.
And I just want to respond to Councillor Clare, and I'm sorry that you picked up on Councillor's less kicking around the tires, but it's for all those various reasons that you've just listed that we do need to continue entering into conversations about these very difficult and challenging topics to ensure that we are advocating for Port Hope, that we are advocating for the positions that this council has taken, because not talking about them doesn't mean that they won't happen. And at least then we have a chance to negotiate and find a different way around it for the community. So it's for all those reasons that those conversations, those difficult conversations have to happen, have to be at these tables, and we have to have strong and experienced advocacy to ensure that those decisions we've made here are secure and advanced on behalf of the community. The clerk.
Madam Mayor, there was a motion to suspend the rules which has been defeated, and in accordance with our procedure bylaw and notice procedure, this discussion that is taking place, there has been no notice provided of that discussion. So my recommendation would be that we move forward with the agenda.
So I guess the question to the clerk is, the CAO had given us an update on AMO delegations, and so are we not allowed to ask any questions or have a discussion around the AMO delegations?
Typically, this section, as per the procedure bylaw, is for providing updates, and it's not intended for discussion. But again, it is at the discretion of council and the chair, but that would be my advice.
Okay, I'm going to take a last comment from Councillor Mink.
Well, thank you. I was going to ask if we can't ask questions now, do we ask questions at the end? Because I do have one question that I would like to ask regarding the AMO delegations now. So I don't disagree with what the mayor said as far as staff coming forward and advocating and having those conversations. But I think for Port Hope specifically, we're moving into a very important time where it's all we're talking about nuclear constantly, and that's going to have in growth and substantial growth, which is going to have a huge impact on our community. And people's lives are changing. People are losing sleep. People are coming forward with these discussions, and they want to know more information. And I don't see what harm it is in bringing a list forward to the community to let them know what we're talking about at AMOS, so that they are aware that these discussions are taking place, and they're aware of what direction those conversations are going.
Councillor Attridge. And this will be the final comment before we move on. We can still do the questions at the end.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think by way of update, I would also include the fact that when we look at these delegations, the community should know that, council is not included in those conversations ahead of time. Whether it's staff, yourself, Madam Mayor, how those
Councillor
delegations
Attridge,
come forward.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there because just for the record, I was not involved in the scribing of
Yes.
these, okay? So it was staff-driven.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and maybe I'll just get my update out first, and then maybe we can discuss some of that. But if it's staff-driven, at some point, members of the elected officials will be at the delegated table to discuss them. So having awareness of that is important. If we are going to be putting forward delegations, at some point, it would be helpful if council were allowed or invited to share what they would like to see delegated. That has not happened. And so we are in a position now where there is content that is being delegated that is outside of the will of council or the interest of council. And so there's a conflict there. And that conflict will need to be resolved at some point.
Okay, we will no doubt return to this in question period at the end, but it's time for us to move on to the report from youth councillors, item number 4. So I'd like to welcome our youth councillor, Leah Ferguson, to present her report, and Emily, our other councillor, is away and sends her regrets. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Since our last meeting, I attended the Thursday Road to Cultivate Market, where I got the chance to shop from local vendors and where information was shared about the many opportunities to learn about Cultivate, which is September 25th to the 27th. The Thursday Market is also a wonderful chance to listen to live music from local artists as well as musicians from across Canada. I look forward to attending future Road to Cultivate markets and encourage others to do as well. They are hosted every Thursday from 4 to 8 p.m. in Memorial Park. As well, I attended the Arts Festival, where I got a chance to check out many of the festivities across town. The event featured dozens of vendors selling art-related products. The Arts Festival also featured the 10 Minutes Plays, which had different locations throughout town, and drew in crowds gathered to watch the performances. Exciting news, Port Hope is now being featured in the West Northumberland newspaper, which will provide opportunities for information about events and activities within Port Hope to be shared across Northumberland. In review of tonight's agenda, I note the potential financial challenges to youth are being acknowledged via the financial hardship section of the AIMS program, being proposed tonight under the consideration for students receiving OSAP. Thank you to staff for taking youth into consideration. Coming up tomorrow is the Movies in the Park at Memorial Park, starting at 8 p.m. As well, before the next meeting is the start of school, so buses will be reintroduced to the roads. I look forward to starting my senior year of high school. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. What was your favorite part of the Arts Festival, would you say?
Probably the vendor market. It was great attendance and lots of people came out to check out all the products that were for sale.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from around the council table? Councillor Lass?
How do you do all this and still help your poor dad with the farm?
Coordination, time management.
And that's why she's a youth counselor. Thank you very much for that report. Moving on, thank you. And moving on to item number 5, delegations. We have 3 delegations on the agenda tonight. And as such, I'd like to ask that our delegations please be mindful of their 10-minute time limit as set out in the procedural bylaw. Please note that a bell will ring when you have 2 minutes remaining. And we're going to start with Catherine from the Port Hope and District Historical Society Archives Committee regarding the activities of the Port Hope and District Historical Society. So welcome. Can you just hold on? We just want to...
Okay. As a member of Port Hope and District Historical Society, I'm here tonight to tell you more about one of the active historical organizations in Port Hope. In the gallery are also the board chair, Don Davis, past chair, Joan Ashby Parrott, and Mark Clayton, a member of the board of directors and chair of the Historical Society's Archives Committee that we're talking about today. We're here because we recognize that our quiet work over the years may not be known by council or to council or staff. And during this transition of our colleague organization, the Port Hope Archives, this is an important time for Port Hope, for information about Port Hope's vital role in preserving local heritage. We'll also say up front that although we're going to be talking about the importance in the history of the Historical Society, we also will be touching on the fact that we'd like to have a meaningful role in the decisions pertaining to 2 things before council coming up soon. 17 Mill Street, we'd like it to remain the archival location, and documents pertaining to the history of the former town and township remaining in Port Hope. But more about that later. The second slide. Oh, I have to do it. The Port Hope Historical Society has all of the charitable requirements for a modern charity in the province of Ontario. We meet all those standards. We have an extensive collection of photos, letters, maps, articles, certificates, and family histories back to the first settlers donated by local families who entrusted us and believe their family heirlooms will be cared for and remain local and remain accessible to future generations. The Port Hope Historical Society has been quietly active in our community for decades. How long? Well, here's a question. Where were you in 1964? That was the year that the Beatles appeared in the Ed Sullivan Show. Mary Poppins debuted in movie theaters for the first time. On black and white TVs, 2 new shows appeared for the first time, Bewitched and Gilligan's Island. If you don't recognize either of those, ask your mother or your grandmother. Canadian Parliament voted to switch flags from the British Union Jack to an innovative new national symbol, the maple leaf. All of that in 1964. Some of us here were not born yet. For some of you, your parents hadn't even met yet. But 1964 was the year that Port Hope citizens established the Port Hope Historical Society and has been meeting regularly since then. It's one of the oldest continually meeting town or township historical societies in Ontario. The original name was the East Durham Historical Society because it reaches back to the time, it was established during the time when Port Hope and Hope Township were part of Durham, not Northumberland County. When we were chartered in 1964, the very first president was Michael Adika. You might be familiar with that name. So we want to make the point there that we're very well established in the municipality and have been for 60 years. Now, what's the difference between the Port Hope Historical Society and the Port Hope Archives? Well, a little bit of background on the archives. In 1994, A.K. Sculthorpe convinced the province to transfer ownership of the former Port Hope land office to the municipality, 17 Mill Street. Mrs. Sculthorpe and Lord Rusborough were instrumental in establishing the Port Hope Archives now that they had secured a perfect location. At that time, the Archives Board invited the Historical Society to merge collections, merge the Historical Society's collections with the new Archives collections. But the Society decided to continue to be independent. That was 30 years ago. Now, over the years, local families donated their documents to either the Port Hope Historical Society or the Port Hope Archives, but the 2 organizations were not competitive. Both collections of archival or old documents grew over the past 30 years, especially the archives. Now, we've got a list of some of the things that we're involved in annually or through the year, but I'm going to skip and talk about speakers. Periodically, as a society has had speakers from time to time. Society's most recent speaker was Susan Casson, daughter of AK and Bob Sculthorpe. Ms. Casson spoke about Port Britain on the Lakeshore Road from the 1790s to about the 1960s with details of local families, farms, houses, and the changing topography. You can only get that from local people. Recognizing that delegation has only the limited 10 minutes, I'll tell you a short story that illustrates the kind of local information gathered and preserved by the Historical Society over the past 60 years. One of the speakers at an Historical Society event in 1984 was Doris Reed. Mrs. Reed was talking about the town hall. Her parents lived in an apartment on the main floor at the north end for 30 years, from 1908 to 1940, through the First World War, the Depression, to the beginning of the Second World War. The reason they lived here was her father, Arthur Cheshire, was the tax collector, but he's also the clock engineer, the police constable, the weigh scale superintendent, the jail keeper, the clerk of the farmer's market, caretaker of the building, and he managed the land all around the town hall. He wasn't paid much, and he could only finally lock the door every day, town hall doors every day at 11 p.m. so that it would be open for people who wanted to pay their property taxes. But the family had a 3-bedroom apartment with a kitchen, dining room, 3 bedrooms, and an office. Doris Cheshire Reed just had to walk upstairs to go to school. The schoolroom was on the 2nd floor. Dances were held in this room, which was originally built to be a ballroom. It wasn't built for you. It wasn't built for council. It was built as a ballroom for community dances, and there was one every week. The Port Hope Citizens Band practiced weekly in what is now a committee room. Mrs. Reed told the Historical Society audience in 1984 that she was born in her parents' apartment in the town hall. This is what she said. One cold winter's night, the 18th of March, 1918, twin babies were born here in this building downstairs because there was no room at the hospital on Ward Street because it was during the war and the men had returned from the front and they were overflowing the hospital on Ward Street. Doris and Douglas were the 2 twins, and there were 5 children. As children, their favorite game inside after business hours was sliding down the wooden banister here in this building from the top floor to the basement as fast as they could go. So this story is so much more powerful because we're in Port Hope as we listen to it. A person who lived here told it to us firsthand. Our imaginations are fired up, we smile, we feel warm, we feel proud to live here. For just a few minutes, we travel back in time. If we're visiting here when we hear this story, we feel forever connected to this place on Lake Ontario. But this is a presentation about the Historical Society and how we can provide support, so I won't go on and tell you many, many other historical stories. This slide shows that the Historical Society is part of a large network across all of Ontario. We are members of the Ontario Historical Society, and many rural municipality societies belong to it. As you know, we were colleagues with the Port Hope Archives, which dissolved in March of 2024. This Historical Society did not know about the archives closing until it was already done. We had no opportunity to offer our services to the board or as volunteers. We had no inkling that they were going to dissolve. The archives doors have been closed to the public for more than 2 years, but the entire archival collection is still there. 2 things here. Port Hope Archives collection is larger and more complex than you think, the collection that's in the archives. And secondly, 17 Mill Street, the Port Hope Archives building, is more impressive than it looks. So about the archives collection. The archives, has 2 kinds of documents, municipal and private. Okay, let me speed through here. Our belief is that the wording that Council passed in 2024 doesn't make the full decision on this. We think you have some room to make some decisions about keeping some or all of the collection of in Port Hope. We also feel that the 17 Mill Street is too good of a location to use for anything else. It's not a regular building or library. It was actually approved in 2015 by the province of Ontario for the museum quality humidity, temperature, storage shelves, and boxes. We wish that it to be continued to be used as an archive building. The bottom line here is that we wish to help. Archivists know a lot, but historians know the details. If you do send some things to NCAM, that's the Northumberland County Archives and Museum, the new building across from the mall for the gallery, which is has announced they're going to open in September. We have local membership, longtime charitable status, sound finances, and dedicated volunteers. So we should be a choice to be the caretakers of archival documents, shelving, and equipment that NCAM cannot house. However, we would like to see it used, one of the options may be to have the Port Hope Archives, as it is right now, administered by the NCAM building, but used as a satellite so that it can be open in Port Hope for Port Hope people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think this is a delegation that is very welcome at this council. I know that it's a discussion we've had around the archives, but in a peripheral way over the years. So it's very important for us to hear from you, know a little bit about the history, and perhaps also have an opportunity to ask questions about the future, given the changes that we know are currently happening. And so I'm going to turn it over to colleagues to ask those questions. I see Councillor Less and then Councillor.
Thank you very much. I was hoping you were going to key in on the archives. Somewhat agree with you. The reason that we had to make the decision was because there was no volunteers that were looking after the archives at a certain point in time. You know, they'd done their duties, they had spent their time, and whether they were burnt out or what, it just wasn't happening. So are you suggesting that you can put together a group that could administer the archives?
I can't speak for the board or even the Archives Committee of the board of the Historical Society, but we have a lot of interest and a lot of passionate people about local history.
Thank you.
Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So I have a little bit of a story, and that is there's a resident who lives here currently who told me the story of during the flood of 1980, himself, who would have been maybe in his 30s at the time, ran into the archives and they saved items during that flood. So that has always sort of sat with me, that story, knowing that the river has been channeled. The chance of a flood is unlikely. However, given a Hurricane Hazel event to hit Port Hope again, we could have a significant flood in Port Hope. Is there a risk that the archives being on a floodplain, that they could potentially in that location be at risk? And given that scenario that could happen, hopefully it never does, but it could, is there any type of plan to rescue some of those archive documents the same way they were in 1980 by those individuals?
It's a great point. It's always a concern in Port Hope. We would point out, too, that this building is on the old floodplain. The library was built on the floodplain. The archives is within the old floodplain, but so is the new Ganaraska Brewery, the condo building that was just built, and there's another one. The building was built in 1871 by the province, and it was a purpose-built building to be the record holding office. So it has an extra, even though it was built in 1871, it has a super large protected, I'm not using the technical language, foundation, and the walls are 3 foot deep wide brick in case of fire. It had originally had steel doors to cover all of the windows as well. There was a water system for fire possibilities. But the building lasted as a land record office for more than 100 years, from 1871 to 1993. And during that time, there were 5 major floods. It survived, everything in it survived all of those times, partly because people were ready to evacuate or to leave, remove items that needed to be removed. But it was always a consideration. So yes, it's a concern, but it's not a reason to close it as an archival building, in our opinion.
Thank you. And I just have maybe a follow-up question on that, but it's not about the flooding. It's about, I know that state-of-the-art archival institutions are, building things that are you know, they're very complicated because you've got to have the right kind of temperature to preserve archives. And I wonder if there's ever been any issues of humidity or molding that's happened in our archival building. And where does it sit, the flooding side aside, where does it sit in terms of being the kind of state-of-the-art building that we would want to have in this community to ensure that those precious historical documents are not compromised?
That's excellent. You share our concern with the preservation of those documents. In 2015, when Aaron Walsh was the archivist, the province of Ontario approached the Port Hope Archives and some other rural archives and said, we have some documents that originally came from your community. We've been storing them and sharing them at the Archives of Ontario, which is located at York University in Toronto. We would like to come to your location, inspect it, and have a discussion about whether or not you would be an appropriate location to rehome those documents. So a team came from the Archives of Ontario, inspected our little archives building here at 17 Mill Street. They inspected it for humidity, temperature, fire risk, archival storage, including it has moving special archival shelving. And they approved Port Hope Archives. They didn't approve all of them. And they sent 17 boxes of original documents back to Port Hope, as well as 200 bound books. They're large land record books. So when you purchase land in Port Hope, this is what was originally in the Land Record Office. If you lived on Farm Lot 20 on Lakeshore Road, on the first concession, then you could see who came from the Crown, and it had to be physically written in that building. Those books were returned and are still right now in the Port Hope Archives. So we have a state-of-the-art building right there, and that's what we mean when we say that building is much more impressive than it looks from the outside.
And just, I may have missed it. Could you just repeat again what year that inspection took place?
2015, and 2016 is when the documents were transferred to Port Hope.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from around the table? Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I was just waiting until the end. So I guess first question is for staff. Does staff know where the NCAM is at on potential transfer of our archives? So if they were going to be going forward with it, would we be looking at in 2 weeks? Are we looking at 6 months? Are we looking at 2 years? That's the first.
Back to the clerk.
Thank you very much for the question, Deputy Mayor, and nice to see you again, Catherine. We have met, and she has shared some very, very interesting stories and about the history of Port Hope, so I do thank you for that. So to answer your question, we have recently met, I believe about 3 weeks ago, with our archivist at NCAM, and she has done an initial assessment of the municipal records that are at the archival building at 17 Mill. I do want to say that currently, the process to move the municipal records to the facility at NCAM is not going to be a short process. They are still in the process of actually organizing their own records and also transferring records from other municipalities. The records that we currently have at the archives building will also need to be assessed. There have been some records which unfortunately do have some mold. So we will need to ensure that those records are properly remediated before they are transferred over to the archives building. We still need to do a very thorough assessment of what municipal records exist there, and of course, which other special collections are also there, and ensure that any agreements that need to be reviewed and abided by are also done before that. So it's not going to be a short process, Deputy Mayor. In fact, we do anticipate coming forward to the next council with a budget ask, just to ensure that we are being respectful of the records, but also that we are transferring the records appropriately in accordance with the direction that was provided in 2023.
Wonderful, thank you. If you don't-
Yes, please.
Okay, and then I guess to yourself, do you have an archivist that you work with or potentially work with?
No, the Historical Society doesn't have the funds to engage an archivist.
Okay, And how long do you think it would take for your archivist committee to make a decision on what they would like to do and how they would like to proceed and move forward?
Is the counselor suggesting that there is the possibility of keeping all or most of the archives items at the Port Hope Archives?
Well, I think anything's a possibility as long as there's a will.
We'd like to hear that.
You know, so really, I wasn't sure if you were going to come with a full ask today or where you were exactly at. So do you have an ask for us? Or is it something that maybe your committee wants to talk about a little bit longer? It sounds as though from the clerk, we do have some time until a transfer might happen. So there is time to maybe make these decisions, so.
Three things. The council's motion made, I think, in 2024 was to make NCAM the official archivist for municipal records. But we estimate that about 80% of the records that are in Port Hope Archives are private records donated by families. So we think you have an opening and a possibility to make decisions about that that part of the collection. Secondly, the Archives Committee of the Port Hope Historical Society met with town clerk and town clerk department, and we had some asks from them for some more information. We haven't been able to find any of the records of the AGM of the Port Hope Archives, but we hear from Port Hope Archives members who attended the last meeting that what they voted to do was to transfer administration of the Port Hope Archives to NCAM, and they had no intent that the actual collection would move out of town. In the meantime, in these past 2 years, there's been much more talk about the collection actually physically moving to NCAM across from the mall in Coburg. What we offer as a Port Hope Historical Society is to be meaningfully involved in the discussions about what could happen next. So we need a little bit of time to talk. It's a big thing for us to, we can't come in and say, yes, we'd like to take it over right now, but we'd like to have some more conversations. And town clerk and the committee have been very amenable to work with. We appreciate it.
Wonderful, yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at is like, how long do you think it would take you to make a decision as per the committee? But I think we do have enough time, so I guess I could come back to you and then we could talk about it again in the future, so.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Joe.
Just going off, Councillor Adam, you said you don't have it in your budget for an archivist. Is an archivist required to open it to the public, like to have one on staff?
The skills of an archivist are like the skills of a librarian. It looks like they're not doing very much, but there are a lot of professional skills involved there. Council has been supporting the archivist, the pay of the archivist, $40,000 a year, all the whole time that Port Hope Archives was running for most of the 30 years. You never withdrew that money, and it was no fault of yours that the Port Hope Archives Board folded or dissolved and the archives have changed, but now it's landed in your lap. So to answer your question, for the Port Hope Archives to continue to run, it needs to have some oversight by both local historians like us, but also an archivist, either by NCAM, the one that we're paying for, the county, all of us are paying in our taxes towards the NCAM archivist, whether she could spend some time and open the Port Hope Archives once a week, or provide some funding, or some funding would have to come from somewhere else to open that, for it to be open and protected. Thanks.
One last question from Councillor Mink.
It's not a question. Just before this conversation wraps up, I just want to, as a historian myself, or a history major myself, I share your passion, and I just want to thank you, those that are doing this work right now and volunteering your time, present and past, for keeping these documents and looking after them and being the keepers of them. That's very important, so thank you.
Thank you. Well said. That archives is a wonderful gem and a treasure. We'd like to keep it. It took 30 years of volunteers to get that.
Thank you very much for being here and for getting the conversation started again around what the next steps are going to look like.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
We're pleased to be well received by you. Thank you.
Okay. And, did you want to make, okay. Well, what I'm going to do is first, a motion to receive this for information. So moved by Councillor Darrell, second by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed. And we will now take a brief 7-minute recess. Yes. Okay. We're going to continue on and thank everybody in the public for their patience as we get through this very dense agenda today. Moving on to our next delegation, Shannon McKinnon, Screening Operations Lead, and Police Chief Tim Farquharson, Port Hope Police Service, regarding Criminal Background Screening Unit. And I would like to ask you to please come up to the podium. Thank you.
Thanks. We're quickly getting up to the podium because the deputy clerk's ready to hit the bell already. I saw her. She almost tripped me coming in here from a quick washroom break. So we're gonna be quick, and I know it's been a long night already. Just want to say, first of all, because council and a lot of members of community, so council, staff, and one of my bosses, Connie Fluitt from the board, is here as well. So we have to do a good job, and I have to be on time. So I just want to say, first of all, where I was for 36 years before here, didn't have an opportunity that we do have in Port Hope that was started quite a while ago that Shannon's going to tell you about shortly. Most business revenue for police service is simply grants and possibly an auction fund. That's historically what you have in a police service. But here it's completely different, and you're going to hear about it. I just wanted to introduce our screening operations lead, Shannon McKinnon. Fantastic person, blessed to work with her and her team. She's taken this business screening to a new level, which you're going to hear about, and then we'll finish up quickly. But it's now, she's got a new name with her business case, Criminal Background Screening Unit, CBSU. So without further ado, Shannon's going to start up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Mayor and council members and staff for inviting us tonight. So just to tell you a little bit about the Criminal Background Screening Unit, it started as a very small idea in 2008. It was operated by one staff member, and that staff member produced background checks that were coming into the office at Walton Street through a fax-based request. They were a very small operation, but they had a big idea. That business has quickly and very exponentially grown in the last number of years. And as of recently, we've made a peak revenue of $1.2 million. We continue to grow as an operation where it went from a one staff member organization to we are now 14 staff members that are operating within our unit. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. So just a quick overview of our organizational chart. So Chief Farquharson oversees our business and the operations that happen in the screening unit. We are also overseen by the Director of Finance and HR. Then myself as the screening operations lead, and I supervise 13 now general clerks. We just hired 3 new individuals to start with us today. So we are completely operational within the police service. We are supervised, as I said, by the chief, and all of our policies and procedures are overseen by the RCMP. So this is a very lucrative market. A lot of people aren't aware that it even exists, but there are approximately 40 to 70 third-party companies that are outsourcing for background checks. And this business generates about $300 to $500 million a year. So what we're generating for revenue and profit is a very small margin of that, but it is a business that is growing rapidly, and there is quite a strong need for this. Talk about this?
Yeah, just quickly, if you take a look at the last 5 years, $854,000, that is, that's not gross, that's net, what comes in. So basically, we're just over 50% of what Shannon and her team bring in. You can see the things that it's paid for. It's basically our capital budget. And if you remember Jeff Gilmer, when I started March 2023, Jeff Gilmer did the following budget presentation and said, this community hasn't had a capital police budget in years, and there's only, I think, 5 police services right now. It's expanding because other police services are seeing the benefits of this. So it is a very competitive market. That's why we're just keeping this really high level tonight. But if you look at all our cruisers, all our capital, our equipment, tasers, all paid for through the hard work of Shannon and her team. And if you go back to 2023, I just started the job, 2 months into the job when we had a serious cyber attack ransomware. We know that that was roughly what you see there, the $854,000. And it was because of that team's work that didn't go on to the taxpayer. That was paid for by the business. Obviously, we're fully insured now. We couldn't have been at the time. We just couldn't meet the threshold. We have since then with Northumberland IT. So we're very fortunate. We're open to questions.
No, you've got one more.
Oh, that was going to be one of the questions.
Oh.
It's good. So where we want to go with the future growth, as you know, in 2014, the police station was built, and like all police stations in Ontario, and Mike, I know you'll know this, that when we build them just to basically take care of today. And that was back in 2014. So it quickly outgrew. A lot of our people are in closets. We've taken all our closets and janitorial rooms, those types of things, turned them into office space. We don't have the lockers. We have to figure out how we get the lockers for men and women in the police service in the future. And we've been out of space long before I was here. Bryant Wood, the previous chief, had drawn up a plan, and we just carried it on. And it was approximately $3 million in 2024. I'm not into the building costs, but I can imagine that's now we're into 2026, almost 2027. It's going to be a lot higher, probably towards $4 million. So we need, the only way we can do it is to expand, and if we're going to hold off on an expansion to save funds there, then we'd need another location to expand.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to talk about the screening business, because I don't think it's something that everybody in the community is fully aware of, and the important role that the revenues do play in keeping the capital costs down, as you mentioned, Chief, and also off of the tax levy. So very, very informative. I'm going to turn it over to council members for questions, comments. Councillor Less.
When Shannon gave this presentation at the police board, she was a lot more animated, and
I'm trying to go as quickly as I can.
It was a morning meeting, and it sure brought everybody's temperature up a bit. I just wanted to acknowledge the chief. It's totally at his discretion whether the screening operates or not. His main job is policing. It cannot be distracted by anything other than, our job is to police. Our job is not to raise money. This is a complementary thing that we've gotten into, and as long as there's that balance, then we'll continue with it under the chief's discretion. So thank you.
Yeah, and working with the board, we said in 2023, I believe, when I started, we were at 484,000.
Approximately.
And Shannon's team is online for $1.5 million this year. So incredible growth. It totally goes to an amazing team. We've given them free rein, and they've been growing it. Well, I shouldn't have said that. We gave them a lot of leeway.
We have that on the record?
Yeah. But it's just an amazing team. And I will say to have in policing, civilian staff get along so well and be complimentary and so respectful and work so well together. It's awesome to watch. And just listening to them. And every time I go back there, they don't want to talk to me very long because they're too busy. So it's fantastic.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from around the table? Well, you know what? What a good news story. Actually, something that produces revenue for the municipalities. So thank you, Shannon, to your team, and thank you for putting out such a ambitious strategic plan, and for the growth that you're carefully curating, because it's a benefit not only to the police services, but indeed to the entire community and to the taxpayers of Port Hope. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have as our motion to accept this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Adam, seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed. And moving on to our third delegation, we've got Peter coming from Peter, and I'm going to be very careful with the last name, so just bear with me. Osmoya, and if I have not pronounced that correctly, you will correct me. Who's the Director, Outreach and Stakeholder Relations, University Network of Excellence in Nuclear Engineering, regarding introduction and role of UNINI. So please come to the microphone and welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, council staff, and the community. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As the mayor said, my name is Peter Azemoya. I come from the University Network of Excellence in Nuclear Engineering. Very long name, but we shorten it to UNINI. So, I'm here this evening to bring what UNINI does and how it might be helpful to the Port Hope community. So, who is UNINI? The University Network of Excellence in Nuclear Engineering started in 2002. Okay, technology. What happened was that the industry, the nuclear industry, OPG, Bruce, ACL, they had difficulty having highly qualified personnel. So they decided to come together and see how they can reach the universities to have what they call the Masters in Nuclear Engineering. It started small, and then they brought membership, the universities, the industries, and later the government. UNINI is a not-for-profit organization. Its major function is to get these industries, the universities, and the government together at the same table to decide the best way for the industry. That's the nuclear industry. Its work is education, training, research, and workforce development. Now, who are the members of UNINI? We have currently 18 university members, 16 of them within Canada and 2 outside. The National University of Science and Tech in Romania and the University of Cordoba in Argentina. Those are external universities. Then we have the industry members. Currently, we have 9 industry members, and then we have government. The government department that belong to UNINI are the ACL, the CNL, and CNSC. Now, what do these do? So basically, UNINI brings together these universities, the industries, and the government to work as a network in education, in research, and outreach. For instance, if OPG is having a problem in one of its sessions and it needs experts, the experts are in the universities. It comes to UNINI, UNINI goes to its members in the university and say, OPG has this problem. How can we solve it? The experts come together, work with OPG, get that problem solved. And then the government comes in. Nuclear is provincial electricity, but it's regulated by the national system. That's why we have the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, which is a national body. So the OPG and the university cannot work in isolation without including the government. So that's how the government came into it. So basically, what they do, like I said, is to educate, to train, carry out research, and carry out outreach, like I'm doing here today. Now, how will this be of help to Port Hope? Like I said, we were giving master's degrees and all of that. We brought it down. Now we relate with the colleges, no longer strictly reserved for the universities. Now we're also even looking at going down below the college level to high school level and others. Last year, we signed an MOU with the Saskatchewan Polytechnic to carry out some training for people who want to be reskilled into the nuclear industry. That's part of what we do. So the courses we run now for the polytechnic level or the college level are not the same we run for the university level, just because we realize the need to, if we go in just strictly for the master's degree, we can only produce maybe 20, 25 in a year. And the industry needs thousands of skilled people, yes. So now we go to the colleges. We actually come into the high schools, not to start training the high school, but to provide them with resources, expertise, opportunity to have experiential learning in our members' organizations. For instance, we can have high school students spend maybe a week or visit on this thing to the Canadian Nuclear Laboratory or to OPG and all of that. So that's what we do. For Port Hope, I just have a few things there. Knowledge. This gives access to universities, educators, and technical expertise. We all, before I came here, I was reading about what Port Hope is doing. And one of the things I have here is that Port Hope considers future energy opportunities, including possible new nuclear development in West Levy, access to reliable information, and independent expertise will be important for this development. So that is where the knowledge aspect that UNINI provide. How about talent? The learning pathway for students, workers, and professionals being part of UNINI. Like I said, we just started the Canadian Nuclear Learning Center in Chalk River. That's Canadian Nuclear Laboratory. UNINI, CNL, and AECL came together and felt the need to have a center where everybody can go to at whatever level, and it's called the Canadian Nuclear Learning Center. It just started. The framework is still being developed, but at least it's already in the offing. And that gives learning pathway for students at any level, high school, college level, university level, can go there for resources, to get information, to get access to experts who can mentor them and be part of what they do. Now, dialogue. Community learning as Port Hope explore future energy opportunities. Now, we are experts, or we have the experts, and we believe that at this stage in your quest for new energy and others, we can provide the experts that you need and you will use for this opportunity. Thank you for that. I'm basically done. So we believe that if you have this work with us, you have this opportunity of dialogue, definitely some of these areas of need will become easier for you to work with. Now, what am I asking of you today? What I'm asking Council is to receive this presentation for information and support accessible, evidence-informed public discussion about energy. What I'm trying to say is that we can provide that evidence-informed public discussion. Whatever information you need, we have the expertise. That's UNINI as a group because of our expand membership. This presentation is not asking Council to endorse UNINI. No, that's not why I'm here, or any particular energy source, but to take advantage of the resources experts and materials available within the UNINI community. So that is really why I'm here today. So for you to receive the information, encourage information discussion in your community, consider collaboration with UNINI, and access and share resources locally, and not asking for policy endorsement. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Peter, for the presentation and talking about what the organization is about and the partners and the institutions and the resources and the information that you're able to provide. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to council members. Councillor Less.
Thank you for the presentation. What knowledge could you pick up from Port Hope, both historical, current, and future, that would help you in your endeavors?
Okay, Port Hope has been, from our understanding, has been home to the nuclear industry. And one way we'll see Port Hope is that what is trying to do in terms of energy is area where we believe we can help based on what we know about Port Hope. For instance, the West Lively, if I pronounce that correctly, project is one area that UNINI is so enthused because it shows a possibility of changing one form of energy source to another form, still keeping the people involved in it. For instance, if you were in the coal industry and you were a welder in the coal industry, we don't expect you to just go away because we now have nuclear industry. So we think we can pick that ability from the community, from the area, and say, okay, you were working in coal or gas and that. Come work in the nuclear. All you need to do is to do what we call a reskilling. So I think basically that's the way I see that.
And could we, in the future, pick your brains about your involvement with Bruce?
Absolutely. That's actually what we are for. When we signed an MOU with the Canadian Association of Nuclear Host Community 2 years ago, that opened the opportunity for every nuclear host community to work with UNINI, to pick our brain, as you said, for us to provide the experts in the various areas relating to energy. We are a nuclear-related establishment, but we open to every energy source, and we have the resources, because if you take OPG is not just nuclear, but OPG is a member of UNINI. So yes, you can easily pick our brain.
Councillor Mink.
Thank you for your presentation. So you have here encourage informed public discussion. So that there is a demand for that here, and the scope is broad. What's your vision, I guess, or what vision can you offer the community of what informed public discussion looks like?
First thing is, for there to be public discussion on energy, and in particular on nuclear, the public has to know what they're talking about. And I'm going to give the council and Madam Mayor a copy of a book which we believe is the new resource in the nuclear, in our organization's resources. Something that people can, if you want to talk about nuclear, you should know about nuclear, not the technical aspect of nuclear. We don't expect everybody out there to start talking about the reactor, the gigawatt, and all of that. But we want everybody to be able to say, the radiation we talk about, how does it work? The waste from nuclear, how does it affect us? Why are we not using solar and wind? Why are we talking about nuclear? People need to be open, to be knowledgeable about these various aspects of the energy system to enable them to have this discussion. I'll tell you something, councillors. Don't be surprised if tomorrow one member from your community asks you, Madam Councillor, why are we not using wind? Why do we have solar on that roof? Why can't we change the whole community into solar? These are basic questions. But everybody will start discussing them if they know how to integrate the various energy sources as a package, rather than saying solar is the best, wind is the best, nuclear is the best. No, that is not what we're about. So for the community to discuss it, they need to know what it is about, and then makes it easy.
Any other questions or comments from around the table? Okay, thank you very much for, was that, no? Okay, I thought I heard a.
Madam
okay.
Clerk, I said I'll give him one book for the mayor, his address, and one for the community. It's a resource that I believe will be useful.
Yeah, I think we can keep it in the office.
Yes.
So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So the recommended motion is to receive the delegation for information. Can I get a mover and seconder on this? Moved by Councillor Less and second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Thank you. And now we are moving into the public comment period. It is now time for the public comment period. As per our procedural bylaw, the purpose of the period is for members of the public to provide comments on items that are on today's council agenda. If you have questions related to an item that is not on today's agenda, please wait until question period, which is later in the meeting. And of course, please keep your comments brief and respectful. And I also remind council members that no questions or comments can be directed to those providing public comments tonight. So if you'd like to provide a comment, please approach the podium and state your name, and staff will turn on the mic. Any comments this evening? Okay. I think it's been a while since we haven't had those. But moving on to item number 7, correspondence. There is no correspondence this evening. Moving on to item number 8, consent agenda, approval of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. We just have one set of meeting minutes from July 21st on the agenda today, so can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, second by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item number 9, consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any items under this consent agenda for separate discussion? Councillor Less.
Yes, I have a couple questions about 9.2.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so then what I'll do is we will take a vote on 9.1 and 9.3. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? That is passed. And then over to you, Councillor Less, for your item that you've pulled.
Yes, on the Environmental Advisory Committee, you suggested that there may be an e-waste program in the offing.
So I think that was being brought forward as one of the possible uses of the $50,000 donation to support the climate action plan. I think the final recommendations from staff, I don't think that is one of the ones that's being prioritized from my memory of the most recent conversations. But I think that will be part of the staff report around the final recommendations with regards to use. But one of the things we have talked about a lot at that committee is that the process of examining what we could do with those funds has surfaced a lot of great ideas about programs that we could pursue in the future. So even those that might not be funded through this particular donation, they're now on file as potential things that we could look at, including in the budgets moving forward.
And the other question was about the garden lot at the old Penryn woodlot. Did you get any further with that?
You're talking about the community garden at Kingsfield? That I think, yeah. So that was.
Said Penryn lot. But
Yeah, so that was discussed. That was actually something that's been discussed. My understanding is that's been discussed at PRC. And that was raised and shared with the Environmental Advisory Committee for our knowledge. And I believe it was with an invitation that PRC was hoping that we would play a role in that as the planning for that comes forward. And I think there is enthusiasm for that, not only at the EAC, but also with a group that's formed in connection to the strategy for community involvement in the Community Climate Action Plan called Local Food Works, who are looking to establish community gardens all around the community, and they're very interested in being involved as well.
thank you.
Okay, so we can now consider this for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item 10, items for consideration. Report CAO 0926, re-debenture borrowing and capital expenditure for 39 Pine Street North. So I'm going to ask the CAO and Leo to provide some introductory comments. And just want to note that Leo Deloitte is attending virtually.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm very pleased to report that staff are making good and steady progress on the transformation of the historic Central School into a vital service center for staff and community partners. In my experience, this kind of project has all the necessary success factors, and they're falling into place very quickly. So I want to talk about three things: fundraising, design, and leasing. And I'll just touch on that a little bit to give you an update. Michael Pahor is exploring the criteria and deadlines for grant applications for the elevator improvements, Trillium, and other grant bodies that we identified in our previous report, and those would offset construction costs. After recent negotiations between our municipality and CNL, CNL is committed to an increased quantum of up to and over $600,000 toward the cleanup and development of the site, and providing the necessary support as we work through that over the winter. Staff expect that the CNL contributions will pay a high percentage of the external work. Second item is design and construction and technology. Staff are retaining architectural expertise to design the accessibility features, including the elevator and accessible washrooms, which we hope to have completed. Which we hope to have completed by middle of next year. The project engineer, we're talking to professionals to design the required outdoor site work, including cleanup, driveway access, and parking improvements. The project engineer and architect will be responsible for preparing detailed cost estimates before tenders are issued, and that is a great help in avoiding any cost overruns. And I should mention that technology has been ordered, and we're setting up Wi-Fi and other security devices. The third area is leasing and cost sharings. So I pleased to report that negotiations have begun with top-tier tenants that will offset operating and future building maintenance costs. As mentioned by the chief of police, there is some interest in accommodating their increasing service delivery staff in this historic building. Accommodating police staff at 39 Pine has the benefit of avoiding approximately probably $4 million of costs associated with expanding the existing police building. Fair Share Chair Dick Cowling and their executive directors submitted preliminary design inputs for the architect to consider in terms of building and site considerations to support their potential operations at 39 Pine Street. Discussions are underway to secure over $1.5 million in investments from well-funded organizations. And lastly, I should mention that Mr. Parkin is in the final stages of retaining real estate expertise to provide advice on leases and land values and help staff in negotiating future leases. So I just turn our attention to the report, CAO 926. Staff recommend that bylaw 47, 2026 be approved to allow necessary capital improvements be made to allow public occupancy in 2027. This bylaw also establishes an operating budget for the rest of 2026. Bylaw 48, 2026, contained in tonight's agenda, we recommend it be approved to secure a $4.9 million debenture to cover the cost of buying and improving 39 Pine Street North. And lastly, as promised in previous meetings, staff will give regular reports to council and the community on the progress of 39 Pine Street North, projects and fundraising and leasing updates over the coming 12 months. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that update. Note that the CAO was also listed here. No further comments from the CAO. Councillor Mink.
Thank you, and thank you, Leo, for that update. Just one question. I appreciate updates over the next 12 months, but I believe, and I don't want to speak for Councillor Todd, but I think he's asked for a business case, and I certainly support that as well. Are these updates in replace of a forthcoming business case, or is that still coming? I'm just concerned that we're moving along with things, and we still haven't seen that business case.
The business case has been presented. It was a high-level business case, and we're coloring in the lines right now in terms of leasing, construction, actual cost, and getting away from estimates and getting right down to design details, and then talking to the potential tenants and lining them up and bringing the full package together. And the other thing that was raised was, the space allocation. We are starting work on space allocation, and that's been raised before as well.
Can I have a follow-up?
Just brief interjection. I think the reference to Councillor Todd was the needs assessment, and I think that's what, not in business case. It was more the needs assessment that we're working on and looking at strategically how we're going to move forward with that.
So, and the reason I asked the question is, as we're moving forward with the debenture, I've had some conversations with potential tenants, for instance, that I know these discussions are very, very early, but they've said, well, we had our eye on such and such, and we talked with the municipality, and we don't know if that meets our needs. So the question I have is, as we approve this debenture, if we find a year in, those tenants that we hoped for, maybe they don't want to move in what we're offering into those spaces. What options do we have at that point as far as we've taken it a debenture, maybe it's not going to go as planned, how do we pivot at this point?
Through you, Chair. First of all, if you're having conversations with potential tenants, please let us know.
No, that these are tenants that have been named, like we've talked about publicly out there, that they've come to me and have said, and I don't want to put their names out there, but you're talking with them, but then there's other conversations that may be happening outside of what's discussed with staff. So I think we're hoping that the tenants we talked about are all going to be happy and just going to fall into place, but that might not be the case in reality. So what is our plan a year from now if we find out, well, we don't have the tenants that we need. We took out this debenture, we made this commitment. We don't have that business case in front of us. What do we do then?
So, through you, Chair, in response to that, I will say that a reminder, we did scale back the debenture to essentially the bare bones, purchasing the building and some, fairly significant but not bank-breaking renovations that would be needed for, whether it's just staff in there as well. So obviously we will seek out other tenants to move forward should one of the possible tenants not want to move forward with the space acquisition of Pine Street North. But we are, at council's request, we've scaled it back. So any future improvements will be as required as money funding comes forward. We will come back to council with those requests. If the money doesn't transpire, tenants don't transpire, we have not overextended ourselves. We're doing the basic minimum on this project.
And did you say that we had to take out the full debenture at this point, or we could take out a portion as needed?
Sorry, this is the basically to cover the cost and.
Yeah, I thought in the last meeting, the 4.9 million, there was a comment saying, well, we don't need to take the full 4.9 at this point. Is that correct?
No, we need to take the 4.9. Our original request was $8 million to cover the 8 million debenture to cover like the highest possible worst case scenario of what we would have to spend should nothing happen. But we're going to take the incremental approach at council's request.
Councillor Less.
Yeah, it reminds me of a discussion many years ago that Cobourg had regarding the Lucas Point property that they purchased. So this is about 10, 15 years ago. And there was nothing there. It was a field. And over the years, it has become quite a money generator for the town of Cobourg, I think to the tune of about $1.5 million a year. So build it and they will come. The other thing that we are restricted as a municipality, we can't bonus our leases. That means that we have to set our leases that are competitive with the marketplace. And is that not correct?
So through you, Chair, we would come back to council. Yes, we are trying to achieve market rate on this. Past experience of many on SLT having experienced similar situations in different municipalities where there were lower market rates, but that would always come back to council to make that decision. These are not businesses for the most part. Some of them are not-for-profits. Definitely the businesses would be considered bonusing should we decide to, do different than market rate. But that would come back a council decision to make, is this a community endeavor that council wishes to support? I think, we've had the conversations that maybe lowering rent is not the way to do it. If council chooses to support an organization like, I'll say Food Share, there's other avenues, whether it's a donation from the municipality, trying to keep market rates at stable levels.
Thank you.
And the clerk has alerted me to Councillor Todd having a question online.
Yes, thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions, one of which, what capacity, this is for the CEO, what capacity does staff currently have to actually be the landlord of this property? Or are we going to be seeing you come forward at some point saying, hey, we need to establish a municipal services corporation, we need to hire some staff, we need to be able to have building maintenance people for these tenants? Can you just give us maybe some background as to how that's going to play out?
Through you, Chair, yeah, I think as Mr. Deloitte suggested, we are also bringing on a professional real estate broker to help us with the leases, not bring it internally. We have experienced it internally in past municipalities. It's best to let the expert do that. It all comes down to business case. What does the business case mean? What can we charge through the rent process? And to offset any potential expenditures that we would need to operate the building to make sure we're cost neutral or favorable surplus.
Yeah, I don't think that was quite what I was asking, Mike. I think what I was asking was operationally. So we have a tenant. Quite frankly, we may have several tenants. Building is not working so well. They've got problems with a leaky roof. They've got problems with a bathroom backing up. They've got, they've got complaints about snow removal. Who manages all that?
Through you, Chair, yeah, that would be part of form, and I'll let Mr. Lloyd respond as well, but that would be part of the lease negotiations to include maintenance and, what's another word for it? Sorry, it would be built into the maintenance and care. That is part of it, and that would be part of the business case to make sure we're not taking it on the tax levy. It's going to be fully recoverable, and I'll pass it to Mr. Deloitte to comment.
Yeah, if I may, we have built in one full-time equivalent facilities person. So the town now operates many buildings, libraries, the community center, town hall. So we have a lot of experience and we drew on that. And so we're managing that now for ourselves. And so we would continue to do that, and we would have someone on site to manage the building, deal with tenant issues, and certainly make sure the building, which is already in a great state of repair, remain in a great state of repair and be the place we want it to be.
Madam Mayor, I do have another question, but recognizing others
ahead.
may as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So the other question I have is, and I appreciate, thank you, Councillor Mink, for bringing forward again the needs assessment, because reading the reports, I remain concerned that the report really reads like hope is a strategy. We hope we're going to get some grants. We hope that we're going to get some tenants. We hope we're going to be able to fund this properly. I appreciate your confidence that this is going to turn out the way you expect it to. But then we also look at the space. So without the needs assessment, are we going to be tenanting space that we actually need? This entire project seems to be a leap before you look and let's catch up later. My concern is that the taxpayer is going to be eating a lot of it. As a businessman, if someone from my company came forward and said, we want to build or buy a $10 million asset, and I said, how are you going to pay for it? And they said, we're not sure, but just trust us, it would never go through. And I feel we're in that space right now. So I would very much like to know, when is the needs assessment going to come forward so that we can have a look at it? Because as Councillor Mink pointed out, we are running down a road without having the plan in hand.
I'm going to turn that over to either Leo or to the CAO, but I do also want to perhaps comment on this. Having been in the university sector and sat on high-level executive decision-making around campus development on multi-million dollar projects, buildings that were $30 to $50 million plus, I can certainly share the experience that the information that I think has come forward has come forward in a good stepwise way. I also think I can compare it to some of the decisions that have been made at a higher level government here in the county about purchases that had far less information than what was presented to us. So I do want to say that we all have different perspectives and experiences on what is the comfort level of information to move forward with decisions. So I did want to share that, but I also want to turn it over to the CAO because I interrupted his response to you, Councillor Attridge.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, at the last meeting, we did hear you, Councillor Todd, about the needs assessment. We are moving forward with that. We are exploring external needs assessment to get that professional lens on it. We made the assumption, sort of, as we said last meeting, the 1/3, 2/3 approach, 2/3 for municipal, but we need to do that final business case and see what space needs are actually happening. I think externalizing it brings credibility, it brings a different perspective from a capacity perspective, so that is the route we are going to take, as many municipalities do.
Thank you. Looking around, Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the question of tenants, because that is something that we're actually being asked to authorize this evening, is to move forward with those lease negotiations. And I know we're aware of two such tenants, but I wondered if there could be a comment on what are the parameters that we're using to determine who might be an appropriate tenant. I noticed there, mostly it seems to be community service that we've been talking about, but there was some mention of maybe businesses. And I'm curious about that. And then the other piece for me, as you know, the thing I keep harping on is the revenue, like the other side of that business case, the revenue, and then the offsets to offset the cost of the purchase. And from the revenue perspective, how much are we looking to cover in terms of annual costs through the lease agreement? So I'm kind of looking for what is that number that we're hoping to achieve that would keep the building, I guess, revenue neutral?
So through you, Chair, I'll take the last question first, because I forgot what the first question was already, but I'm getting a bit tired. That's the design of the lease agreements, right, is to make sure we're covering costs. We have the opportunity for base lease, and then we can build in maintenance and things like that so that we're covering the costs. The goal is to be a break even or a for-profit organization, ultimately where we would like to get to. We've had experienced that in the past at different municipalities, and that's the direction we have achieved in the past, and we can do that going forward. To your first question, the parameters, I did remember it now, the parameters of, this was in conversations in closed session with council, and having seen the site, we heard council's loud and clear that they want this as a community hub. This is a community space that will support residents' needs. In what way, shape, or form, we can always come back to council. We will come, as Mr. Delight said, we will be coming back to council with regular updates and say, is this a tenant that you would agree with or not agree with? So yes, that'll all come back to council for council input.
All right, I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding. So it does say in the report, the operating cost is about $177,000 per year. Are we looking to cover that full amount through these lease agreements? Is that the intention?
So for clarification, the 177 is just the operating approval for the balance of this year, right? And that number probably won't, that's probably a very high number at this point in time too, because we're so late in the year. And we didn't want to revise the staff report at this point in time and change the numbers. So yes, it would be the goal ultimately is to recover all costs through the process. Understanding there is staff in there. I'm not sure how much 100% that we're going to achieve that, because it'll come through the regular tax levy, because we are supporting staff in that facility as well. We do not want to put on the back of all the tenants everything, the full cost of it. So the revenue would be proportionate, I would say.
I just have a follow-up to Councillor Claire's question about the tenancy. How would you then account for not just revenue coming in from tenancies, but how would you account, for example, in the ledger book, a situation like Port Hope Police Services, where potentially moving into that building would allow them to increase their screening business, which then would increase the revenues that they're able to bring in to cover our capital expenditures, plus result in a cost avoidance of having to expand the police station. So how do those lines all get integrated into some of this conversation and consideration?
I think a lot of that, through you, Chair, a lot of that discussion would happen through the budget process, right? Do we have specific line items for costs saved by the police not building a building? No, it's not a specific line item in the budget, but I can deflect to Director Baxter, just partially comment on that. Yes, we would, overall, it still comes from the same taxpayer. So whether it's the town budget or the police budget, one would be lower, should be lower, or the police should be lower from increased revenue, therefore reducing their operating costs. But we would see that through the budget process. Director Baxter, I don't know if you have any further comment to that? No. Okay.
I've got Councillor Less, and then I've got Councillor Todd online. Councillor Less?
Yeah, we can't lose sight of the fact we got to move 15 of our own staff in there. And if we went outside for office space, let's say it was $1,000 a month per staff member, well, you're talking about $180,000 a year right there. They got to sit somewhere.
Through you, Chair, that's a good point. I would say you're very conservative on the $1,000 per head out there from what the market rates that we've seen as we explored the different alternatives going forward before acquiring this property.
Councillor Attridge.
Thank you. Actually, I think my hand was up. I just hadn't lowered the little line thing. So
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments around this? Okay, seeing none. We do have a recommended motion that is for our consideration this evening. So can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by, yes, the Deputy Mayor. Or Councillor Terrell? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Moving on then to item 10.2, report FIT 1426, reuse of urban and rural low-level radioactive waste, LLRW reserve funds. Does council have any questions or comments about this item? Councillor Darrell?
Yeah, by pulling a set amount of $350,000 from each ward, will that have any effect, like any chance of drawing from the principal in the fund?
Not at that draw level unless there was a downturn in the market. So things will be set up to try and be able to provide or preserve, I should say, that principle. We're setting in the 350. That should still be a conservative amount, but we did want to reflect, that we are making some changes and have the taxpayers see some reduction from that level. We could be more conservative. We could go, lower, but we're hoping that our actual earnings are higher. Again, we don't control the market, and I'm hoping that over time, once we build more funds in greater than that initial $10 million amount, that we would be able to actually increase the amount that we would use. But this will help provide some stability. But it is a good question. I also wanted to, try to point out in the report that this is somewhat higher than what we've used over the past 2 years, but that was a higher amount than had been typical, right? So this move to the One Joint Investment Board is we're anticipating a higher amount than what we've done over the past 1 or 2 years. But if we had not done that, I would anticipate that we would actually be reducing the amount that we would be able to use for the taxpayers. So there is actually a greater benefit than what we're seeing from what we used last year to what we're using this year. Very good question.
Thank you for that, and hoping that fund will grow exponentially in the very near future as well. Councillor Less?
So when you make your determination at budget time, are you using prior year's figures or anticipated future years to calculate the 350?
Well, the point of this report really is to identify that we need to move away from that approach, right? So in the past, we would factor something in and then actually identify how much we were going to use in about May when we set the tax rates. A few things have changed since then. One, we're trying to have less change between when we set the budget and what we anticipate the impact of the taxpayer to be and then what the actual taxpayer impact is. So we're looking for more consistency. The other thing is we need to include this amount in the budget like we did last year. And we don't know in November how much we are going to have actually made over the course of the year. We don't even get those statements till February or March, right? So it's impossible to continue setting it at, say, an 80% of what we earned in the prior year, because in order to do that, we'd actually have to start looking at 2 years prior, which is in itself becoming a bit more confusing. So what we're trying to do by this is set a level, Councillor, so that we would go into every budget setting it at $350,000 for both wards. If over time, right, we anticipate, that we actually end up earning quite a bit more, then what we would do is we would look to increase that amount. But we do need to consider that we are taking on the potential for more risk, right, as a specific decision knowing that it should be leading into also much greater returns over the course of time. But what we don't want to see is that we have a really good year, and let's say instead of $330,000, we use $500,000 to reduce the levy. Then if the next year is not so good, right, and then we turn around and we only use $200,000, or say, hey, we shouldn't use anything because there's been a market decline, then what we're going to end up having is the impact on the taxpayer is going to be an increase in their taxes, all of the things being equal, just because we didn't have the same level of market returns. So on the anticipation that over time we're going to have higher returns, but there is the potential now for more fluctuation, that we would set an amount that's slightly higher than what we've been using now, which is higher than we've used historically, so better for the taxpayer, and then set that and keep that for a few years. And then if we find that we build more of a buffer, that's greater than our initial $10 million, and we're seeing that we're consistently having better results, then what we would do is we would increase that amount, but do it in a way that we were minimizing the risk that we might need to also reduce it.
Who's going to slam the brakes on if there's a market downturn?
Well, we're gonna set it at 350, right? We are meeting with the Joint Investment Board in September. So this one will help us going into budget. It will help us determine, all be on the same page going into budgets about what that amount will be. But it also helps us go, because the Joint Investment Board is looking for an actual plan. How much are we going to withdraw every year? They can then set our portfolio up around that. Which is very different than saying, it might be 200,000, it might be 600,000, depending on how the market goes, right? They need that consistency. They'll be able to manage our portfolio better with that information. So that is what we're looking to establish. Nothing stops us, though, when we actually see what the returns are, and we'll be reporting that every year, from at that time stopping and saying, last year wasn't very good, right? Or maybe we need to look at readjusting, right? Or maybe there was a downturn, and that downturn might be for 2 months, it might be for 6 months, or it could be for, 2 to 4 years. In the latter case, that's where we need to start looking at adjusting. But we've talked through some of these scenarios with their staff, and we're going to take this to the Joint Investment Board. You just wanted to kind of follow along. We had identified this was an outstanding item that we needed to revisit with the decision to move to the Joint Investment Board. And frankly, we needed to revisit it anyways with the update in terms of the timing and that want for more consistency. And so, hence the report. And I do think we're taking a very measured approach that is both conservative, but will also is going to be for the benefit of the taxpayers and seeing some increased reduction to the tax bill.
Is that, okay. Okay, I'm not sure who's first. Councillor Mink and then Councillor Clare.
Thank you. So just to clarify, this isn't a decision that's by bylaw, right? So if we needed to go up or down or make an adjustment, it would just be a staff report? Is that correct, that you would just bring to council if that was the case?
Yeah, the current direction is through resolution. We're going to maintain, the recommendation, I should say, is to repeal that and, essentially establish a new resolution. At the same time, as we commented, we could, if there was a specific, issue in some year, we could revisit that and address it at that time.
Councillor Clare.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no concerns at all. I think I really appreciate the effort to stay in keeping with the spirit of that 2018 resolution, but in a way that makes more sense with what we're doing today. My question is actually for the rural councillors at the table, because I know that the issue of the LLRW funds, the rural fund in particular, has been a controversy, or there's been a lot of interest in it over the years. There was a court case. It's been a thing, and I'm wondering whether the timing, unfortunately, of our summer schedule is that we're here at council. This is a one and done decision, direct to council. I'm wondering whether we need to be concerned about how that might be received in the rural community, because there is such an interest in this that we haven't gone through COW and then council with the opportunity for questions and comment and engagement with the public about this before making the decision.
Councillor Baxter. I wasn't sure if you looked like you wanted to say something before I turned it over to the rural councillors.
Certainly, I do have thoughts. I mean, I'm interested in their comments as well, but do appreciate the question. Certainly, one of the things, knowing that we're going to the Joint Investment Board, and as we've said, we're trying to make this investment change very quickly. And so, that's why we're bringing this forward. We don't have to make a decision, today. We're going to be going to the Joint Investment Board on kind of this basis because we need to have a basis that we're going to them with. But we can always adjust, right, within some parameters. The thought, though, really on this, I think there is an interest in terms of awareness every year in terms of, we do include this as the information that goes right out with the tax bills. How much did we use, right? So there will be an awareness. If we were going to reduce this from, I can't remember the exact numbers, but say 330,000 down to 250, I think there's a much greater need for communication and awareness. The fact that we are basing this on the numbers that we were using before at the 80%, right, on a good year, and now we're improving them, generally the concern is, can we apply more? Can we earn more money? Can we apply more to reduce the tax rate? And what we're putting in place is going to achieve both of those. So I don't see there being much challenge or concern to it. I think it's more that we just need to make sure that we're establishing the awareness about what we are doing.
I'll go to Councillor Mink and then Councillor Darrell.
Thank you. So I'll try to be very careful how I say this, but so as the director had said, there's information that goes in the tax bills. We have reports that come to council. We see our financial reports. We have budget. There's a narrative in the rural community that, and I'm saying this in quotes, it's not coming from me, that $10 million was stolen, and that will never go away. We could have those individuals come and sit here in this room and walk them through it, but as long as they want to believe that narrative will never go away. So I don't know if there's anything that we could do for those particular individuals to change that. That's not the whole rural community. Many do understand, but for those that will not understand, I don't know what to say.
Thank you for that, Councillor Mink. And I do think that this council went to great efforts to try to dispel some of those rumors through an independent consultant's report. And so I think we've done more on that. But I think you're right. There's some people that will read those reports and still have their own opinions. Councillor Darrell.
Yeah, I've had the same conversations that Councillor Mink has had. It's usually two or three things. One, that the fund doesn't exist, which it clearly does. The second one being, why are we getting such poor return on our investment? So we're obviously changed the game there. And the biggest other one is they would like to see the actual discount on their tax bill of what they received, which we can't do that. So that's I think any increase we can get and give them a discount, I think is going to be welcomed.
Thank you for that. And I do think that this council was very purposeful in saying that we wanted to move forward and make sure that whatever investments we've got are getting the best returns. And as we get, hopefully, more monies coming into the community, that will make sure that those monies are well invested and getting the best returns possible as well. Any further comments on this? Okay, so the recommended motion is on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed. At this point, we are going to take another brief 5-minute recess. Okay, we are going to move on to item 10.3, report FIT 1526, re 2026, second quarter Q2 financial update. And just waiting for everybody to take their seats. Thank you. And does council have any questions or comments regarding the financial report? Maybe I'll just kick off and ask the question that I had. I'm just wondering on the line of government grants, just, how we could potentially explain the gap, And obviously, understanding that government grants are such an essential part of revenue generation for the municipality, I'm just wondering if you can give a little explanation of why we're seeing that gap.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So a pretty small chunk of the sort of general decrease in the government grants is because of one unsuccessful grant, really. The bulk of it is just deferral. So it's just a matter of we originally budgeted to, do project A, B, C that was going to be covered through grant funding. So we had the costs and the expense lines, most contracted services, but a few others, and then the offsetting grant revenue above. So because of multitude of things, vacancies, staff departures, other projects coming up, the world that we live in, those projects have been deferred, or portions of those projects have been deferred to later years. So you'll see them come up again in next year's operating budget and future operating budgets. But that's truly the bulk of it is therefore that funding, is also getting deferred with that. So it's not a large concern there. It's not $1 million of unsuccessful grants.
Yeah. So related to this, and I think I've asked this question before at the council table, is do we know how we fare in relation to other municipalities of our size in terms of our ability to pull in government grants?
Well, I'll take that one. I don't think we've done that actual comparison. I think with Director Pahor coming on board, we're going to start the tracking, the logging, and do those comparisons across different municipalities. I would say that, based on my experience in the municipal government, that we've done fairly well so far. So I think we, now with Mr. Pahor on board, who has great resource or grant development experience, we will be fairly lucrative in our approach.
I saw you maybe wanting to say something on this. So Mike, we have to figure out how we're going to do MMP or so Mike P. Did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I think it's just important to note that, again, as we kind of get the Corporate Initiatives Department, landing on foot, there will be, a number of opportunities that may have passed us this year, but I think the key is to be ready, having some really strong packages in place, developing those relationships with these grant funding agencies, really doing all the background work and the groundwork to be ready to go out the hopper in 2027 with some of the grant programs that have already closed. So not taking this time to be prepared for next intake for a number of the provincial grant programs.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes, Councillor Mink?
Thank you. So just a small little housekeeping item. On the attachment, the very first item is the Garden Hill School acquisition. I think that's a typo, is it not? Did we buy Garden Hill School? Isn't that George Hamilton?
You would be correct.
Okay, thanks.
I'm constantly guilty. I didn't do this one, but I'm constantly guilty of that. So we will correct that for the next one. Thank you for catching that,
Thank you.
Councillor. If I also may, through the chair, I just wanted to add to the comment just around the grant. So you're anticipating grants as most of us would anticipate grants. This reporting follows our provincial requirements. So one of that is because we are getting money from the federal government level towards a PHI cleanup, right? So a good part of this, which is why you're also seeing contracted services are coming under, is actually cost recovery related to PHI, and the timing of it happening really has nothing to do, or the majority of it doesn't have anything to do with what you would typically consider to be grants. So I just wanted to make sure that was, I know it's noted in the report in one spot, but I just want to make sure that was kind of clear to everybody, because it is certainly not that we are short $1 million in grants. It's more about the timing of recoveries from another level of government.
Thank you for that. Councillor Attridge.
Thanks very much. Are we able to find out what's left in the Growth Readiness Fund, and maybe we can get a report on the detail as to where that money's been spent?
Through you, Chair, I'll take that. Yeah, we are tracking that Growth Readiness Fund to make sure we're spending it prudently, because we were, given a time frame for how long we think that should be spent. If council wishes to see that, it was presented through the budget process, how much we were drawing down from that, but we could provide that to council again.
Yeah, if we could get that maybe quarterly with this update, that'd be helpful.
So for clarification to Councillor Todd, through you, Chair, is that the only reserve you're concerned about? Or are you wanting to look at all reserve balances?
Oh, I would look at all of them. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, the recommended motion is to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Clare, seconded by Councillor Less, all in favor, and that is passed. Moving on to 10.4, Report LLS 3026, Re-Administrative Monetary Penalty System Report, and we're going to ask the Manager of Law Enforcement to provide some introductory comments to this.
Madam Mayor, through you to Council, this was a process that staff started back at the December COW meeting where they introduced a report on the education of the administrative monetary system and how it operated. We followed up that report with another report that was tied both with the new traffic and parking bylaw for the June 16th council meeting for information. Staff received extensive comments regarding the proposed parking bylaw. So in addition, it was decided that the best way to move forward because of the extensive feedback that was received to split the report from combined traffic and parking and AMPS to just AMPS, and then bring back the traffic and parking bylaw at a December date. During this entire process, staff haven't received any negative feedback or comments regarding this process, either from residents or from council. So we are now ready to proceed with the presentation of the AMPS bylaw, the screening and hearing officer bylaw, the policies that will be brought in place, as well as the amendment that goes to the current traffic and parking bylaw, so AMPS can in future be in place. The rollout of this is by approving the AMPS bylaw tonight, our fire services are able to enforce fire code violations and Fire Prevention Act, is that what it is? Fire Prevention Act violations. When the proper software and procedures are in place, by approving the amendment, you allow delegated authority to the CAO to enact the parking amendment for future rollout so that then we can enforce parking infraction offenses via AMPS. Currently, we, under our legal fees are about $5,000 in legal fees is what we budget for our department. Last year, unfortunately, we were over by about $10,000 on that, which ended up eating into about 40% of our parking revenue from ticketing. And that was on roughly 40 offenses. So the cost of adjudicating things through the provincial offenses courts have gotten exponentially more expensive. And the unfortunate part is our previous prosecutor has retired, which we were getting at a pretty discounted price. And now we're looking at roughly about $300 an hour to hire a prosecutor because as a smaller municipality, we don't have a prosecutor represented through the county. We have to hire a prosecutor ourselves. So that looks at $300 per hour. Usually it's an hour of Crown brief preparation and trial preparation, and an hour or two of court. You could be upwards to $900 on a $40 ticket. I'm happy to sit there and answer any questions that council have.
Well, that's cost beneficial. Yes, thank you for those introductory comments, and any comments from around the table? Wow. Okay. The recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? Thank you. That is passed. 10.5, Report LLS 3126, Re-Bill 97, Changes to Municipal Privacy and Freedom of Information Requirements under MFIPA. Any questions or comments around this? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to receive this for information? Councillor Darrell, is moving, Councillor Clare is seconding. All in favor? That is passed. Moving on to 10.6, Report LLS 3226, repeal the declaration of surplus lands for former, and not Garden Hill, but George Hamilton Public School property. Does council have any questions or comments regarding this report? Councillor Darrell.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. I think it's good to have a second chance at this one. I think we were premature in designating it back when we did, and I'm looking forward to seeing what options that property could bring.
Thank you, Councillor Darrell. Any other comments? Councillor Less?
2 weeks ago, we were toying with the idea that it would have to be torn down, and now we're trying to protect the property. I'm for it because, it's a good training facility for the police, but I'm wondering what the longer-term plan is that you can talk about.
Through you, Chair, yeah, we are exploring all opportunities of that property. We are doing it in conjunction as well with there's other MTO lands that we're looking at possibly being granted. So we are looking at the holistic view. We are also being very mindful of the impact assessment through OPG and what those requirements will be from a regulatory perspective, whether we will require land for possibly urgent cares. There's potential to use those lands for a centralized health hub, interest from many community partners on co-locating or relocating into Port Hope. So we are exploring all those. Those will come back to council for fulsome discussion.
Thank you. And I actually have a question around the operating costs of the school that were in the report. To what extent are they offset with any training revenues that we're currently receiving, or are we receiving any training revenues?
So I'm looking to the director. Yeah, the police training, I'm not too sure. Is there revenue from that one, Director Baxter?
I'm not too sure off the top of my head. I do think they contribute something, but I'd have to look into it. We can look into it and let you know.
So we could potentially find that information, right? Okay. And second question before I go to Councillor Clare. This is just actually a procedural question. I know that a lot has changed since the first motion came forward to move forward to surplus this. But just out of curiosity, why did nothing happen on it for such a long period of time after that direction was given by council?
To you, Chair, I think council declared that surplus in January of 2025. I was not on staff at that point in time. I think there was a transition of leadership in the organization. So I think I can't answer exactly what happened with staff. As soon as I did come on board, I realized that we needed to take some sort of action on it. And also alongside of that came the OPG potential new nuclear as well, which took into consideration. That's why we're bringing it back to council to declare it on surplus.
Thank you. Councillor Clare?
Yeah, I have concerns about this one from a process perspective because, and a question actually for the clerk on procedure, because I know our procedural bylaw has a whole section on reconsideration of council decisions, and the bar is set really high in terms of how we do that, and I think my understanding is that that's for good reason, because council decisions need to be seen as final in order to carry public trust, in order to prevent us from what we're experiencing tonight is revisiting something we met. I think we had 4 or 5 meetings about this over a long period of time. It's been many years of discussion before we got to that decision. And it also risks what has happened here, which is council direction going unfulfilled. So I'm interested to understand what is the procedure. I know the procedural bylaw does say, here is how we do it. If a member of council wants to reconsider a decision of council, it's silent on staff initiating a reconsideration of council. But I know that there are provisions there about if a reconsideration is brought forward, it can only be for an entire resolution, not a portion thereof, and that it requires a 2/3 majority vote. And so I'm curious to understand whether those provisions will be applied to the vote this evening as well.
The short answer is yes. So section 49 of the procedure bylaw does go through specifically what needs to happen in order for a reconsideration of a council decision. It is not unusual for staff to come forward to council to ask them for a reconsideration of a council decision. In fact, it happened just at the last council meeting where the ARU report was considered. And typically what that when that does happen from a staff perspective is when there is new information that has come to light and staff feel that that's something that should be considered by council and should be part of that decision-making process. And I believe that is the reason why this report in itself was brought forward to council at a public setting. I'm going to try to answer a few of your questions, Councillor Clare, so please bear with me, and if I don't, then let me know. In terms of how this is going to be addressed, as the mayor asked, and then as the CAO also responded with respect to what has happened with this particular resolution and bylaw, was that in 2025. The recommendation and the resolution that was passed was to declare the property surplus. The bylaw was passed to declare the property surplus. That was the only action that was taken at that point. No other action has been taken with respect to this file, and that is my understanding. This is why a reconsideration is appropriate, because no action has been taken. Now, if an action had been taken, if it had been declared surplus and been put on the market, if there had been staff resources that had been attached to it, that would have been a completely different conversation. In this case, an action took place, a bylaw was passed. Since then, no other action has taken place, and now new information has come to light, which is why the report has been coming forward to council for your consideration in terms of next steps. You are right about the reconsideration piece where there are specific rules. There is a 2/3 vote that is tied, so essentially, if the reconsideration motion is considered, when the item was originally considered back in January 2025, it was a recorded vote. There were 2 council members that voted against it at that time. They may not be the movers and seconders of the reconsideration motion. So they may vote on the matter, but they may not move or second it. And then we would have to have a minimum of 5 council members vote in the affirmative for the reconsideration motion to be passed.
Can I just ask a clarification on that last piece? And Councillor Clare also thinks she needs a clarification. Can it be just brought to the fore now who the 2 councillors are that voted not in favor of surplusing that land, that cannot be involved in any?
Absolutely. I've already spoken with the two council members. It was Councillor Toms as well as Councillor Mink, and it was a recorded vote at a public meeting.
Councillor Clare.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that explanation. I think I can understand the explanation. I find it, though, a little bit concerning that the reason it's appropriate to be asked to reconsider is because the work that was directed in the original vote was not done. So it's a bit convenient, and I think it's a risk in our procedures, right? That if council direction is not implemented, then it opens up the possibility for it to be coming back for reconsideration. And I just want to name that. It's part of process and that. But I also think that if we're going to talk about this tonight within the context of things have changed since that initial vote, the other thing that's changed is we've bought a new building. And a lot of the conversation about purchasing that building was also about looking at offsets in terms of sale of other assets. So, that to me is also an important part of the context. I think we We tend to be looking first at the OPG context on many of our files, and I think that we need to balance that with also looking at the other pieces in front of us. And to be asked to not sell a building we've already decided to sell after many years of deliberation about what to do with that property at a time when we know that we need to look at selling buildings in order to offset the cost of the new building we've purchased. I'm not sure that I see the sense in that, and part of it might be that I don't know what the conversations are about these other potential opportunities. The report is very vague on what those are, and so I think I would need a little bit more convincing and some information about what is being contemplated. That said, I do want to reiterate, I'm a bit concerned about the thought that a lot has been contemplated, that their staff time and resources are being spent on exploring options for a property that council had already decided to surplus and sell.
Thank you, Councillor Clare. Just to continue the thread here before I go to Councillor Mink, I also wonder if one of those things that has changed might be that just from an economics perspective or a prudent real estate perspective, that, you know, hanging on to the property for a bit longer may reap a higher return to us because things, in fact, have changed. So that's, it could be a, not exactly do something, but it could also be a timing thing, because we do know that real estate valuation fluctuates depending on both demand and then supply. Councillor Mink?
Thank you. So I have concerns about this report as well, sort of echoing some of the conversation that's been had. But I've heard various discussions about this. My life cycle through this is that we had a building that was structurally sound, great opportunity. Those opportunities never came to fruition. Then the discussion is the police use it. No, they don't. Yes, they do. It's surplus. It's not structurally sound. It isn't surplus. I am finding it very challenging at this point to make a decision because it changes. It constantly changes. I was in favor of keeping it because to me it was a great administrative center for the municipality. It was central to the municipality, both urban and rural. It was one story. We had lots of land. We had lots of parking, and I thought that would be a great administrative center. We bought 39 Pine Street, so to me, it's not an administrative center for the municipality anymore. There was also thoughts of potentially subdividing it and selling it and making profit, but now I'm hearing other things. We have other uses for it, a central health hub, centralized health hub. Well, then that's provincial. Are we opening a private centralized health hub? I don't know if that's something that I would want to support. I need a lot more information about this potential use of this property than what I have at this time. I just don't have that information. And I just, again, going back to the discussion we had about 39 Pine Street, where is the business case at this point? If we're going to potentially, I heard Leo say in the last meeting that building needs to be torn down. So we're going to tear down a building, build another building. We're updating with 39 Pine Street. We got a fire station. We got a water tower. I just see the vision here. Where does it stop? So at this point, to Claire's point, my idea was sell this, offset the cost of 39 Pine Street. So I don't know why at this point we're reconsidering. That was part of my decision for 39 Pine Street, was offsetting, and now it kind of seems to be null and void.
Okay, Councillor Attridge.
Thank you very much. Before I ask my question, I'm just wondering from the clerk, is there a way in which I can get into queue with the hands up? I'm noticing that I raised my hand at the beginning, but I'm at the end of the question cycle. Again, you don't have to answer that right now, but I'd just like to put it out there procedurally if there's a way in which I can get into the proper queue, recognizing that it's not easy to see the hand on the screen. That said, I do have a question and possibly a comment. I agree with Councillor Mink and Councillor Clare. I'm not seeing the reason why we would take this off. I appreciate the fact that there's some musings or there's some thoughts by staff. But again, going back to our needs assessment, Unless staff is prepared to come forward with a needs assessment to understand why this thing would be kept, and we're looking at that globally across all of the facilities, we just keep collecting properties. Like we bought Lakeland Place, we bought George Hamilton, we bought 39 Pine, with this notion that we may need this property. We're having conversations around it. Those conversations aren't being had with council. I would like to know what those conversations are. But it's going to start with the needs assessment for me. If we don't have one, I don't see any reason why we would go ahead and save this building or from being sold, unless there's a very compelling and clear articulated reason as to what we're doing. If you have that, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know if any staff member want to respond to that.
So I think we just don't know what we don't know at this point in time. To your point, Councillor Todd, yes, the needs assessment needs to be done. We do get, requests from developers to buy it, yes, because it's out there. But based on new information, we're saying, okay, is it the right move at this point in time? But I say it still may be an option to sell it. But at this point in time, to save staff time from, responding to all these developers until we have more fulsome information through the needs assessment, having an understanding of the real estate values, what we could get for it, what we could do with it. Different community partners are approaching us that council will come to council with, and if it's an opportunity. I just say it's buying us a little bit more time to make a fulsome decision based on fulsome recommendation to council based on fulsome information.
Yeah. I guess what I don't understand, if we've already declared it excess and all these people are coming forward, developers want it, why not then just sell it? Like, we already gave the direction, you're saying people are interested in it, but it's a match made in heaven.
Through Chair, I would say, some of the development opportunities haven't been stellar and haven't come to fruition, to be honest. I think I still circle back to new information, being prepared for the future. What is the best use of that land? We haven't had the opportunity to come to council with different options going forward. So what is the best of the use of that land going forward based on new information? What does potentially, that is prime real estate right there. So is there something that we can create there, a space we can create for the rural people to have better services in the rural area, other than selling it off for for development? I don't know. I don't have the answers to those questions yet. I guess the request is to just buy us a little bit more time to come back to council with a fulsome recommendation on the best use of that land.
I also just want to follow up on some of this line of questioning, and that's to ask, we're talking about potentially a lead on 2 parcels of land that are north of 401 that need to be decided on in terms of moving forward. So is that factoring in at all in some of this, decision making? Because I do think that I am frustrated with some of the things that this council historically has passed as motions that have not been taken up as quickly as we wanted, and the data tracking around that is a very good intervention. But it also strikes me that as we talk about all the lands that we're aware of in our land inventory, lands that are going to become aware to us, how do we move forward truly in a holistic way?
Great question, and I'm glad you brought up the land inventory, because I think that is the first step that this council has taken to have a good understanding of what we actually own. Next step is to start to do that assessment of what can we divest, what should we keep, what are strategic properties to keep. That is why we are trying to bring a broker of record on board to help us support that and get rid of those unnecessary parcels and future look and see what is going to be a strategic piece of property that we could develop for the best use for this community.
So I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in with one last question, which is, what is the downside for us to pause? I'm not saying necessarily use it for something else, but to take a pause on it for a number of months. I feel like the information about how much the operating costs are offset, some kind of opinion on what's happening with the market and whether the valuation today is anticipated to grow. I mean, these are some of the pieces of information I want, because it's like a house sale. People don't sell their houses at the bottom of a market. They tend to wait and see what the market might do. And if we know that there might be an increase, does it behoove us to wait a little bit in order to get the best sale possible? So these are all the things that are going through my head, from obviously the frustration of the lapse in time around the original motion, but it's allowed at least one council member to change how they feel about either keeping or selling. But I just wonder about the timing of it. Is there a downside to waiting? I'm not saying indefinitely, but for a period of time, and have this come back within a period of time to council?
So it's council's prerogative to defer this motion, definitely. You can move that forward if you choose. Yes, we can provide more fulsome information. Timeframe, it would be an interesting conversation about timeframe, what time, how much more, some of them are low-hanging fruit that we could probably get fairly quickly, real estate values and things like that. The broader picture too is, what is the impact of potential new nuclear? Like, what does impact, OPG is new, just starting the impact assessment process. That would be a longer time horizon. If we had more information from that, but that might not be within council's time frame that they're looking to make a decision on that one. Just be mindful of that.
Yeah, I think my position is, if we're going to sell, I want to make sure we're getting it top dollar at top market conditions. And that's really my position. Councillor, I'm sorry, it was Councillor Clare, Councillor Less, and then Councillor Mink.
Yeah, I think I'm really kind of frustrated, to be honest, about this, because I feel like we're getting into this trap of decision paralysis. This is now the second term of council that has wrestled with what do we do with this property. We spent a lot of time looking at it. In fact, it was staff that recommended that we do declare it surplus after we looked at the land inventory. We knew what the valuation was when we made that decision, and we thought that the $590,000 was a good price, and we agreed to that. We're never going to have all the information. We're never going to know what we don't know. And so if we continue to use that as a reason not to pull the trigger on decisions, or to continually go back and revisit our decisions, how do we ever move forward on these big pieces? And I think a deferral now, to me, I think I would look to the clerk for understanding about how that happens in lame duck, but I would assume that means we're deferring that to a third council to wrestle with a property that there has never actually been a realistic proposal for its use. And I'm not sure that I'm comfortable passing that buck when I think this council did a lot of due diligence, spent a lot of time on this, consulted with community, heard from community, and made what we felt was a responsible decision that was supported by the staff who were in the chairs at that time.
Okay. Got Councillor Less and then Councillor Mink.
I don't think reversing our decision is a bad thing. If you brought me an offer for $690,000, which is 100 more than we asked for, I would refuse it. I think, we've got the 401 being expanded immensely. We know what's going to be happening down the road in other parts of our jurisdiction. This property is probably going to be worth a lot more than what we think it is right now. And just because we made a decision, I don't think that's a good enough reason to say, oh, let's just accept that, and then 3 years from now kick ourselves in the butt because we got too little for it.
Sorry, Councillor Mink.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm still very confused of what direction we're going with this property, though. And that's the thing. I have Councillor Less here talking about we're going to sell it, and then I hear conversation about we're going to use it and develop it and make it into some hub for, I don't want to say the rural folks, because at this point they don't believe that anymore. Like, we had 8 years to do something for them, so that's not a selling point anymore. If it might be the right decision to take it off surplus, but I'm not seeing why. Like, I'm not being presented with that information to say, this is our vision. And I guess the question I have for the CAO is there anything confidential that we cannot tell the public or even this council about what is the vision for that property? Because I think if we have a vision for it, that needs to come forward. I think we owe it to ourselves while we're making this decision, as well as the public needs to know. Otherwise, if nothing has changed, if it's just a valuable property, well, then we could sell it at any time and negotiate a better price for it. So that's my question. Is there a reason why we can't share more information?
I just, before, if I may, I wanted to just advise that Councillor Attridge is no longer in the meeting.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that. Sorry, I think the CAO wanted to respond.
So for more fulsome, I would say things aren't, I'm trying not to break closed session confidentiality here either, right? We've had some discussions in closed session on potential uses of that and potential community partners. So I'm not going to share that publicly. We've had those conversations. And at that time, it was a fulsome conversation that we had in closed session. We can, as we get more information, we can bring that up to public session, opportunities for that land. We can bring those forward to council and to the public.
I think, look, I think there is a lot of different opinions and concerns that are being expressed around this council table around this. I think that one of the things that I'm hearing folks say is that they need more information to better understand this. And so I think, again, I'm chairing, so I can't make this motion, but I do think a deferral makes sense. And back to your point, Councillor Mink, yep, George Hamilton was bought a long time ago and nothing happened for a long time, including in the previous council to this one. So, what's another little bit of time in order to get all of the information that's needed, including some of the from the valuations to the potential uses that can come forward. But we do have a motion that's here on the table that has to be considered unless there's an alternative motion. Yes, to the clerk.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to advise that Councillor Attridge is back in the meeting now.
Okay. Councillor Attridge is back in the meeting as clarified by the clerk. So the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for it? Moved by Councillor Less. Does anybody want to? Oh, okay. Yes. Just as a reminder, both the roll councillors cannot be movers and seconders on this. So moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? I just want to make sure I haven't missed Councillor Todd. No, is he?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Madam Mayor, if you could also ask all against.
Yes, okay. Okay. All in favor? And those against?
I just need to see how Councillor Todd has voted.
In favor.
I voted against.
Oh, sorry, timing issue.
Sorry, that's okay. I think I got caught in a little delay.
Okay, so let's do that again. All in favor? And those against?
Madam Mayor, this does require a 2/3 vote, and in this case, it's only been 4 people that voted for, so the motion cannot pass.
Thank you. Councillor Clare.
So can I ask then, what happens now? So the standing direction from council is that it's declared surplus and should be listed for sale. I understand there is work happening to explore other options. Given that we have not reconsidered our vote, does that mean that the exploration of other options stops and we proceed with sale?
Chair, that's how I would take that. I can't explain why the property wasn't sold by staff, past directors in the past. I have direction from council to continue forward selling it. We will start actively marketing this now. Yeah, we're good to go.
Moving on to 10.7, report LLS 3326, read declare surplus lands, road allowances near Lakeshore Road. Does council have any questions or comments on this? Councillor Clare? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't turn it over for staff for an introduction to this. It was not in my notes. So yes, sorry, Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things to note. We did receive, just today actually, a letter from an adjacent property owner for the Port Britain Road road allowance specifically, requesting, generally supportive of the road sales, but was interested in expressing interest in acquiring a piece of one of the ones near Port Britain Road. So today reached out to the person who made the request, which is 3998 Lakeshore Road, see if they would be okay with, if council was interested in offering a portion of that. They said that was fine. So I just wanted to bring to your attention, I did send the letter that we received along with some potential wording that you may want to consider that would essentially we would go and first offer it to those adjacent property owners, just a portion of it, and then if they weren't interested, then we would continue on as directed by council.
Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Lee for acting so quickly. I had the opportunity to speak with the property owners in question. My understanding is it's all very amicable and everybody's sort of comfortable, getting thumbs up from others in the audience, but I appreciate it. It was a really tight turnaround in advance of today, and I am happy to move the motion with the new proposed wording that accomplishes what you just described.
Any other, okay, Councillor Darragh.
I'll just second it.
Okay. Any further, well, just a second. We actually, sorry, we're still in discussion mode around this. So Councillor Darrell, did you have something that you wanted to share? Okay. Councillor Mink.
Well, I was just going to second it as well, and just to repeat what Claire said, I have had many discussions with all the area property owners, and it seems very supportive of each other to move forward with this, so I'm happy to support it as well.
Yes, to the clerk.
Madam Mayor, when you are ready, I do have the amended language ready to go to move the motion.
There was also, I had sent earlier today, amended suggestion to our solicitor. And I'm wondering if that could also just be read out, just because the first part, yes, please. Just because I actually don't have my municipal phone with me. Right. For the language, so it's just a very small word tweak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I haven't forwarded this to the clerk yet, so it's a very small change that we received a request to consider, and so part of the motion was to, I think it's clause 4, to sell not less than the appraised value, to change that to at the appraised value, just so that, yeah, the intention of that wording was just to say we wouldn't sell below the appraised value, but there's a suggestion, the alternative is that suggesting that we could sell it above, which wouldn't be the intention. So I think that is more clear.
It's
that
just
at the
clarification
appraisal.
about being very precise about what is the valuation that it would be sold at.
Right. And just a quick update, we are in the process of the appraisers underway, and they expect to have it before the end of August, so.
Okay, we're just going to give the clerk a moment. Oh, the clerk has taken the moment, so we can have a look. Has everyone had a chance? Are you moving? Oh, a question?
Oh, sorry. I guess my concern is that are we obligated to offer it to the adjoining property owners first?
So the policy does provide sort of a default process, which in various situations, so if you have only one abutting owner, if you have two abutting owners, if you have more than two, there's various options. It does, for where there's two abutting owners, it does say the default would be you would offer it to both first, and then if one of them didn't want it, you would sell it to the other. But it also allows for council to decide a different way of offering it. So in this case, we had 3 requests for the purchase. Council wanted to proceed with those requests. And since then, since providing the public notice, we've received just this one comment about potentially considering another abutting owner. So that's what we were bringing it forward to you now.
Okay, so there couldn't be any instance where people were blocking for whatever reason.
Correct. We wouldn't want to have any landlocked parcels. So we wouldn't want to have sold the southernmost parts and then have these pieces sort of landlocked. So in this case, we would, we know that the owner of 3998 is interested in all of them. So if one of those other 2 aren't interested, they will take whatever's left.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have the revised motion here in front of us with the mover, and who would like to second? Councillor Darrell, all in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, there are no notice of motions this evening. Moving on to item 12, bylaws consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull a bylaw further for further discussion? Oh, to the clerk.
Madam Mayor, I just want to note that because the report regarding the George Hamilton School was defeated, we will have to pull item 12.7 from the consent agenda, which is regarding the bylaw to repeal. So just want to note that when the items are moved, it would be item 12.1 to 12.8, save and accept item 12.7.
Okay. Just as the clerk said, we are voting on everything with the exemption of 12.7. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by, does anybody want to pull? No? Okay, who would like to second then? Councillor Clare will second. All in favor? That is passed. Moving on then to question period, but before we do so, we're going to give staff an opportunity to leave. Okay, we're going to move into question period. It's now time for question period. The purpose of question period is to make inquiries of council members related to matters of municipal business. It's not an avenue to ask questions to staff, and if you've got questions for staff that are operational, we'll make sure that those are passed on and that you get fulsome responses. So when you do come up, please identify your name, and our staff will turn on the microphone for you. But before we get there, we're going to start with councillors. Any questions for your fellow council members? And I see Councillor Attridge has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for you and Councillor Clare. Would you tell us what the CAO spoke to you about when he pulled you out of the meeting earlier today?
The CAO wanted to talk about a matter that was on the agenda this evening.
Could you give us more?
No, I think that's probably an adequate explanation at this point. At least from my chair, I think that that's probably the it's probably what I want to say at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question. I think I'm going to be a little bit more forthcoming. I think it's probably not lost on people that, based on the motion that I brought forward immediately following that discussion, that was the likely topic of the conversation. I can confirm that that was the topic of the conversation. I understand that the CAO had concerns about that motion, but I think largely because we do have a practice, a common practice based on our staff council relations policy that we don't blindside staff at council meetings, which I completely appreciate. I think we all do a pretty good job of giving staff notice about questions that we plan to ask staff. In this case, my motion was not a question to staff. It was a motion that I was bringing forward for consideration by my fellow members of council, which I see as being a separate matter. I had consulted with the clerk and was doing so within the procedures outlined in our procedural bylaw. So I feel like it was my prerogative as a member of council to do so. And obviously, I'm never thrilled at the idea that, things that I might bring forward from this table are not well received by staff. But at the same time, this is a council meeting, and I do stand by my right to bring forward any motion that I see fit that I think is serving this community, which is what I did this evening.
I think the CAO would also like to say a few words.
So for clarification, I did request the recess so that I could have a better understanding of the approach that was being taken and what the intent was. It's, as your point, Councillor Clare, we do appreciate a heads up on these kind of things, and I was just seeking clarity. And I appreciate you taking the time and the residents taking time during that break to help provide clarity for staff.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Okay, we do have some questions from the public.
Good evening, Faye Moore. I missed my chance at comments, so I waited too long. But I do have several questions. The first has to do with the financial report that is contained in the agenda package. And it has to do with the capital projects that are listed. And many of them are remediation sites by AACL and CNL. So the question is, and a lot of money is being spent in those areas. And is it possible to see something, because I'm not seeing it, where CNL is to these capital projects? They require a remediation as a result of remediation. They are responsible for restoration, rather than having Port Hope taxpayers paying for a lot of stuff. A number of the that are listed there that are the same. But focus And on Dorset West, water tower. The new water tower has increased by 1% since 2020. So the cost and the municipal taxpayers will be $7 million that is going to go on bills and development charges. But there is an of why that did, whether there's a contribution there from the federal government, because they use a lot of water. In the years been doing remediation, and people are talking about the water bills, I'm sure you've heard that. So it's a question to you about, are we getting what we should be getting from AECL and CNL to offset the cost of remediation and the cost of restoration? Second point, in discussing Pine Street, mention of $600,000 from tribute to remediation. Clear what that means. Is the cost of remediation more than that? And is the town going to be doing the remediation as opposed to CNL? And hopefully, the federal government will be paying the full cost of that remediation and any restoration that is required, and not Port Hope taxpayers. And I think I can leave it at that for now. But in terms of the questions, and I would also say, just adding on, that I certainly do believe that any presentations at AMO should reflect council directions, because they are being done on behalf of the community and the directions that have been agreed upon and people want to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. And in terms of the questions that you had, I think the one general way in which I'm going to answer it is that there is ongoing advocacy right now as a result of that meeting that was had that I reported on at this table for a better deal for Port Hope. The original monies that we received for the cleanup project were directly commensurate with the overall budget of the cleanup that was set in place originally. We know that that's more than doubled, and yet the monies that have come to the community have not more than doubled. So I completely agree that we need a better deal for Port Hope. Any other, and we're continuing to advocate for that very actively. Any other questions?
My name is David Stambrook. It's a bit confusing today. I followed the discussion, but it was confusing in terms of process, especially in regards to the two school properties that were discussed, the Welcome property and 39 Pine. And part of it's to the extent that it was schizophrenic. In the one case, you've got a well-considered decision that was made, and now all of a sudden, without being terribly clear about what this new information is, all of a sudden it needs further study. So it's kind of like, in terms of ready aim fire, that was a case that the gun had been loaded and was ready to fire, and all of a sudden it's, hang on, we need more aim, 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 aim.
David, I'm just going to ask you to get to your, we're really,
Sure.
This is the same treatment everybody gets, which is the question, please.
Is, a decision that was made, and now after it's made, all of a sudden there's all sorts of questions about what's the strategy, what's the business case. So I think there needs to be, and I would ask you to consider, the question is how to have a more well thought out process for these plans for acquisition and disposal of property, so that the process looks a lot more sensible, strategic, and like a real investment with due diligence research, as opposed to this somewhat schizophrenic, shoot from the hip in one case, and the other one is we've had the revolver out for a long time, but now we're going to put it in the holster because we want to aim some more. So
Thank you for that question, and we'll certainly have staff get back to you around what is currently in the process for exactly that plan. I think it's also important to note, David, that until this sitting council, there was no information about any of the lands that the municipality owned in a comprehensive inventory. And that was something that did come forward, and it was interrupted in terms of next steps because of staff changes, just as much as there was a delay on that original directions due to, arguably, could be said, staff turnover and changes. But we will take that question back and make sure you get a fulsome response on it. Any other questions from the audience? Don't forget your earpiece.
Okay, actually, I'm going to try and get 3 questions in if I can do it quickly. As for the AMO meeting, I may have got it wrong, but I understood staff was setting it up or something that was done. So my question is, who on staff would attend this meeting, and who on council would attend the meeting? Like, who's going? Are there some kind of negotiations going on with high-ranking officials or something? Like, who is talking for?
That's a great question, Ed, and I think I'm going to turn it over to the CAO to provide the fulsome, I suppose, lowdown on how this all developed, from who's going from staff, who's speaking on behalf of the municipality, and how council was invited to participate in.
It's an interesting process. The registration opens up in January for this conference, which is in August. Because it is a high conference to attend to. January, 5 of the senior leadership team, the directors did register, and at that time it was only the mayor that had registered to attend the AMO delegation. So subsequent to that, Councillor Clare attending, she will be speaking and participating in the delegations, and the deputy mayor joining us for the conference. It's great to have a good in front of the provincial with a roster of people. So we have a great representation from council and the senior leadership team.
And are these people? Hi.
Just finish on one point, is just to say, I suppose I should have probably started saying that previously, the municipality of Port Hope has really put forward Aroma, which is a key conference. We have sized, not actually delegations to these conferences. I think we're seeing something very different this year in terms of the number of delegations that staff did put forward. I probably should have started there. The CAO has mentioned something, and I think Councillor Clare is actually sitting on a panel at this conference. So I hope you can say more about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, it was not my intention to attend AMO, and I had no participation in any plans for AMO or the delegations. But AMO, their directors of policy, reached out to invite me to speak on a panel at the conference to attend, so I could, and then also the conference, but I'm not actually RSVP'd to participate in any delegations, although I'm invited and I will consider participating in some of them.
So will you be speaking to like ministers or like who are you going to speak to
I won't be speaking to anyone. I would just be sitting in and listening, would be my assumption.
So I think just procedurally, the way in which delegations have typically been done, and herein lies my experience in these tax bill of the municipality charged them attending these conferences been bills that I have submitted, but on the county delegations to both Roma and AMO, it's the staff that presents the delegations to ministers or their associates, whether they're parliamentary assistants or staff, etc. They are supported there by political representatives. Every municipality is a little different. In some municipalities, it's staff-led in terms of the presentations. In others, it's a combination of staff and council, and I'm going to turn it back to you.
I do want to add a little bit of context so you can understand it. Delegations are 15 minutes. We don't have hours, and we have to get into our point, our requests for the benefit. So it's a very tight, it's not, as I said, making process, have your voice heard in span. So it's very, and teaming it through council to have these conversations. Province hears us.
Would it be, like, as I understood it, several delegations, like, I don't know, 5, 6 delegations, whatever it is, would it be the same person speaking at all? Like, or council, would it be the same? What kind of things you?
Area across different minutes. Actually, we're hugely in 10 nations with different, very successful. That's common among municipalities. Port Hope is the center of attention in the province. We're very lucky in many delegations to have interacting with the minister, parliamentary assistants, and delegations for very to meet with these. It's a very good news story to really lobby and advocate for Port Hope.
If I could, one more. I'm not sure I understand $600,000 for Pine Street remediation. Like, is that not covered under PHAI? Is it remediation for LLW, or is it?
I'm going to let the CAO answer that.
Thanks, Ed, for the question through your chair, and I think this will help ask Ms. Moore's question as well. We are undertaking the remediation through the CMP, so the Construction Management Project, where we take it on, and CNL, the 600,000 is the estimate, the cost estimate that CNL would think that they would be able to do it for, but they're under they instead of them doing it for us, we have the opportunity to do it, and we can do it at a cheaper cost. So we get the full amount of the $600,000. That is to remediate the whole property, clean it up, and put it back to the state that it was in. So it's going to be covering all those costs. There is no cost back to the taxpayers. And if anything, we might be able to repurpose some of that money if we can do it cheaper than CNL could do it. We get to save that money and apply it for different projects as well. It's a good news story.
So this isn't coming out of the OPG money or?
Nothing. This is strictly CNL, AECL funding the cleanup for us. We're just doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. We've got another.
Jim Sculthorpe, 1685 Willow Beach Road. First of all, thank you for considering other landowners on the side of the Port Britain side road. My question, though, is on 39 Pine Street. Lots of discussion tonight. There's obviously a lead architectural firm and a lead engineering firm, which we haven't heard about, but they must be either, are you looking at them? Who are they? how did they get hired to do this job?
I'm going to let the CAO quickly answer that.
So we do have procurement, through your chair, we do have procurement policies that allow us to take different options of single sourcing, RFPing. We are looking at all our options as far as procurement of the best vendor to provide that service for us. We have worked with different architects as we were doing our due diligence on this project, and they were highly qualified. These are all highly qualified candidates, and it is an operational process, and we do report to council when we do a single source as well.
And is council comfortable with that? And how much is this costing in the budget of 4.9 million? How much are these people, what's the contract being let for this work?
We through your chair, we've been given the 4.9 million. 3.4 of that is for the acquisition of the building and the due diligence cost to do that. We have been given $1.5 million through council to move forward with some of these capital projects, and we're spending within our realm. If we receive extra funding through CNL or different grant funding sources, we will be coming back to council saying, here's the suggested capital project that we can continue forward to restoring the property for full community use, and with the offset of that additional funding without having to go out for debentures and extra debt financing.
And when will council and the residents of Port Hope know who these people or who these companies are?
So we, through your chair, we are working through the costing, right, to just get a better understanding, as I think Mr. Deloitte said, coloring in the lines to get the more fulsome details, the costing, the engineering, so that we know what we need to do and how much it's actually going to cost us. So that will be coming back to council and subsequent reports to council.
So the job won't be tendered, you're just going to hire somebody?
Not necessarily. We are looking at all processes. We are looking at all processes within the procurement policy. Sorry?
Sorry, there's a bylaw and policy.
Yeah, there's a policy in place that we are following, that a policy approved by council. So we have different directions. Some portions of it may be RFPs, some might be direct source, single sourced, all within council approved policies.
Is that set on a dollar amount for these people, these firms that you're hiring?
So through your chair,
I think,
we can take
Jim,
these questions.
what I would say is that we will continue to be bringing forward information as each step is taken with this school project. It's not been a matter of months, it's been a matter of weeks since the decision was made. And if we want to compare other projects that have been led within this organization previously, I would say that we're moving at good speeds. And as I understand it too from an earlier discussion, there's also an RFP out for somebody who is going to be overseeing the leases and the lease agreements that are happening, but nothing is being done outside of policy, and each step is being reported back to council.
Okay, I'm not concerned about the leases. I'm concerned about the construction. I'm concerned about the architectural firm and the engineering firm that are going to have to give you the budget to do the work. And I think one of the concerns that the community has is how much is this costing, and would you be open? And at this point, this process is not open enough for we, the public.
I'm taking that comment. It's not really a question. Maybe the question is, how can it be more open?
Yes, please.
From the public's perspective, we'll take that back, and we'll be continuing to update. But look, it's early days.
And are we looking at any firms from Port Hope?
I would assume that every firm is being considered in an equal way, and obviously we do, at least I would like to think that we would give priority to folks in Port Hope if all other things are equal.
Thank you.
But there's still a process.
Faye Moore, how will we know what it is you are saying at AMO when you say that you're looking out for the best interests of the community, you know that we have different views on that in the community. Some people want the OPG plan for the largest nuclear reactor site in the world in the rural community of Port Hope.
Yep, no,
And many people object to that, so how will we know? Because it gives concern.
Can I
when you-
answer that question? I will answer this question by saying that staff is responsible to advance the strategic plan of the municipality of Port Hope.
And that is very pro-nuclear, pro-OPG, get ready for new nuclear.
And that was a strategic plan that was developed with the inclusion of both council voices and staff voices. So that is the plan that was produced through that process.
Now-
And so I would just say that what is being discussed and prioritized is aligned with the strategic plan.
May I ask the question about what was mentioned earlier about the special economic zone is actually a very anti-democratic process that the Premier brought in, and the notion that the Wesleyville project could be designated as such and be
Yes.
short-circuited,
Yes.
and all of the other input
Okay. Is there
disregarded.
Okay, so the response to that is the same response that I made earlier at the table is council has made very clear direction on this point, but the fact of the matter is that we need to continue to have conversations around these issues because it still remains part of a priority of a higher level of government than we are sitting at, and those difficult conversations have to be had whilst holding to the positions that we have passed at this council table.
So that does sound like, and is it, that you would continue to tell the Premier and the ministers?
No, that's not
that
what
you-
I said, Faye. Don't put words in my
No.
mouth.
I'm asking that
yeah,
question.
I'm saying that difficult conversations have to continue to be made on many different topics with different levels of government, whether we necessarily agree with them or not. They're part of what are called, as you probably know, intergovernmental relations, and those relations remain very important for the future sustainability of this municipality. We cannot afford to be taxing our taxpayers any more than we do. We have to find resources for an aging infrastructure, for the requirements of our asset management plan, and there are many other needs in this community that have been downloaded as a result of many different policy changes at levels of government over which we have no control. So we do have to sit at tables with different levels of government. We do have to have difficult conversations, and we do have to talk about topics, even though we may be clear about what our local community direction and needs are. We still have to be part of those conversations.
Short-circuiting environmental processes should not be on the table for a community that has already been through so much.
Correct, and it's a
of-
great opportunity to reiterate a position in the context of a broader conversation. As I said, we are not veering from council direction, and there's alignment with the strategic plan, and that's the best way I can answer it. But Councillor Clare would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I did want to, just to push back a little on your assertion that the strategic plan is pro-nuclear or pro the OPG project. I think the strategic goal says to prepare for potential new nuclear. Council has not taken any position on this project, other than to say that if the project moves forward, it will have huge implications, and we need to be prepared for that. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I think council was involved in the development of that strategic plan, and we did have extensive conversations about that wording to make it explicit that this is about preparing for something that might happen here, as opposed to us, taking a position on whether it should.
And could I close with just one last question? will you reflect on the fact that the price that Port Hope has paid because of the federal government's negligence and the nuclear industry here is enormous in many respects? And the last thing we need is more of it at Wesleyville.
Faye, I think definitely this topic, is front and center for this council. I don't think that there's anything that would lead you to believe that this is not something that we think about and contemplate on a daily basis. It is a complex file. I think back to what Councillor Clare was saying, we're very explicit in the strategic plan about the positioning, and at this point, we are advocating for Port Hope as part of this process that is happening. And we are advocating for the best interests of this community at every step of the way. And we have to be at those tables, and we have to have those difficult conversations. It's about having political and policy acumen. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. It's now time for our confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? That is passed. This concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. We've reached the end, and I'm in a position to adjourn the meeting at 10:36 p.m. Thank you.